Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, antitheism, antireligionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudo-history, pseudo-morality, things that are found in religion.
Howdy.
Hey. Yeah, so this time talk a little bit about wars in between and when you read.
Okay.
And the reason is because just trying to show, like, a lot of times how it's expressed that in society, advance and it just keeps getting better for people. But this just shows that even though definitely there was skirmishes and stuff in the Sumerian or whatever kind of stuff itself, and then even as Mesopotamia, First Nations grew with just a bunch of wars, they considered that time basically 5,000 to 4,000 to have about 5 wars. But, which is weird because there's actually a lot more than that. But
right.
But but my point is that they consider like major ones, whatever. So, but what's funny is then when you go to from 4,000 to 3,000, right? Then you get 24 major wars.
Oh, geez. So like 5 times as many almost.
So you get my point, why it's important to grasp that. I'm not saying that in a sense society has not sort of evolved, and become a lot better, but not because I would say like it has some natural inclination to do so. And right. I wouldn't say it has to do with because states decide to do great things. I would say it's quite often, at least it's certainly historically, but quite often even prehistorically, it appears that people don't like to be oppressed. So when the state gets better, it generally got better because the leader decides, you know what, people really deserve more.
Actually, I'm benevolent and I love my people.
Right. So this is why I told you. No, I'm a socialist, and I agree with almost everything in communism. Just a few little tweaks to me, just because how I feel that it doesn't fit totally, but it's pretty close. My point is, though, these kind of concepts of us all working together are not new concepts. We always talk about like a revolution where it's going to become this.
Right.
In my opinion, prehistorically, anarchism and socialism and communism were more the norm.
Right.
At least they had a version of it. Let's just say, because I'm not going to say that they had all the politics or whatever. Definitely not. But I'm just saying this grasping that's the new, that's why I say it's funny to me when we talk about revolution is we're going something new when actually we're going really back to something old to me.
Right. Yeah. In a sense, yeah, it's definitely like a return to,
right. We're right. In other words, that's why I told you it's a moral position. I feel that's just so people can grasp my thinking, that I feel that in a sense, it's getting back to, in a sense, a more ethical way to interact with other humans, right? Anarchism. So unlike that's my phone. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, that's because we started early. My thing is saying, "Hey, you got 15 minutes.
Time to get ready."
Time to get ready. If I
Yeah.
wasn't ready, but I'm just saying. So when you that's why I try to show this stuff like the past and the present or even the future, like revolution, how these ideas, in a sense, of something we've always kind of been doing or interacting with. So it's not totally something new. So I feel like the people, capitalism is something new, but
right.
And it looks like it, to me at least, where I think, that capitalism kind of originates or certainly is seen first from, I feel, is a bunch of violence. And then they say that the state systems, which are certainly to me, once again, a form of like feudalism or, a type of capitalism under a king and or whatever, and still doing wage, slavery and wage theft. And I mean, every other thing that's in this, to me, I feel like we presently are interacting with. This shit is the new shit. And it always, in a sense, hand in hand. Watch why I find it a total joke when people talk about being anarcho-capitalist, because, well, literally, there's similar thing. I mean, the problem of capitalism, anarchism is a solution.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like the whole idea of anarcho-capitalism, it ignores the fact that capitalism will devolve into like feudalism pretty fast without the state stopping it from doing so. That's why anarchism is anti-capitalist as well as anti-state. Right. So,
well, I think the easiest way to grasp that, to me, really, is the in a sense, I feel like, if people don't understand, anarchism is like anti-hierarchy. Yeah. Once you grasp that, all the other shit makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because being anti-capitalist, being anti-state, being anti-work, that all is inside anti-hierarchy.
So is being pro-LGBT rights. So is being pro-feminist rights.
Yeah.
You said pro-indigenous rights. Well, I'm just saying,
Absolutely.
Once you grasp the anti-hierarchy, that's why I say anti-classism. I could say anti-hierarchy also. Because I believe that when you interact in that social dynamic, that's actually what is the most conducive for well-being, and is, in a sense, also being the most ethical.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's right.
So it's I'm just saying. So it's important to me to the reason why, that's why I feel like, we are showing this stuff is not just to teach you the past, but to grasp its context and how it relates to now and what our goals could be for the future. And just saying that, like, it goes back to me, like this show and these continuing ones also show to me why Marxist-Leninism isn't good. The state has been the problem from the birth of the state.
Right.
And then the more states they just got more war. It didn't get any better.
Right. Yeah. So even if you have a well-meaning state, you still have a state, right? And that's always going to place people above other people. And that's still always going to have, consequences that in line with that hierarchy, which means inequality.
Well, which is why I disagree with it said if I could even agree with something close to a state, I could never agree with one leader. Never.
Yeah.
Fucking never.
Yeah.
So when you tell me one person's in charge, I already know that system is dog shit.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, the historical, like the states that have called themselves socialist or communist, as much as they did have good things, still that, like you say, like that one person in charge, it showed, like you could demonstrate that this is a flawed system because this person is placed above other people. It's not communism. It's this guy at the top.
Well, like, right, because what's communism? Communism is anti, in a sense, hierarchical also, because it's anti-class, it's anti, we call it, I'm trying to think, I can't think, but anyways, I'm just saying that, it's also anti-state. So that real communism. So that's why they always say, oh, well, this is going to lead to communism.
Right. Yeah, that's right. This is a transitional state. That's
well, but that's like I told you though. But that's why I always go. Then you shouldn't worship the transitional state if you agree that the actual highest well-being is the no more state.
Yeah, that's right.
Then you should look at it with the equal disdain as an anarchist.
Exactly.
You're just saying we have to do this evil. Well, let's keep calling it evil because it is.
Yeah, that's right. Instead, they say, oh, well, let's justify this existing state, even though we think it's going to wither away, we're going to transition out of it.
Right.
We're just going to keep justifying its existence as much as we can.
Well, right. And like I told you, I had a chat with the person about it, and I asked him, well, when does he see that happening? And he goes, well, certainly not within this century. And I'm like, and what are we going to do for the people until then? And then he said, well, maybe even 1,000 years. I'm like, see, that's what I'm saying. That's why I told you also, even though I would love to have vote-in revolution, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's going to happen. That's all. I mean, it's so that's why like I don't have that much problem with people who are democratic socialists think we can vote it in, other than I don't think that's actually going to happen. I think
exactly. That's right.
I see that kind of like I see people who get sometimes utopian socialism when they tell me everyone's house is going to have big screen TV and no one's ever going to have to work a day in their life, and somehow I guess the Borg takes care of everybody. And I just go,
we're going to develop AI and enslave it so that we can all have socialism.
But I'm just saying, so I feel like that's not probably going to be likely either. So it's not that the idea isn't. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's not like I demand that it be some violent revolution. I certainly wish that it never does that.
Yeah.
But I do understand that it may be that.
Yep, that's right. Like, I guess that's why, like, I've been really attaching myself a lot to the idea of a social revolution, right? Where like we're teaching each other, we're trying to spread propaganda and information, and convert people basically. And I think anarchism is growing because of this kind of idea, right? But
definitely. Well, that's how all ideas grow, anyways. And to me, since this idea inherently, is a rational pursuit and an ethical one. Mm-hmm. Even though everyone tries to malign it because they want to somehow justify we have to have some other non-ethical and harsh, terrible system.
Right. Yeah, we prefer the bad systems.
But I was just saying, so I think that we'll get into the show. I'm just saying that I think that it's important to grasp that, like I said, especially for our show, that our show is not just trying to give you history and now you know something, but try to like analyze it and think how it relates to the past, how it relates to a present.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of times too, people think that anything, that's that old, whatever, we can't relate to it. Like you said, but one time when we talked about the Egyptians having a strike, the first strike, recorded strike in history, because it doesn't mean it's the first.
Right.
It's just the first recorded. That it made you feel like solidarity with the ancient Egyptians. Well,
right.
It should. That is the whole point that I'm trying to say, is that we feel so separate, but really, if you're being an anarchist, I don't know how you're separating yourself. I mean,
we're all part of the same lineage, right? Like we're all human beings fighting against domination. Yeah. So
go ahead and
I'm going to start that over.
By around 7000 to 6000 BC, people began to move south along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers to what were by then the fertile floodplains of Mesopotamia, specifically in the land that today makes up most of Iraq and parts of northern Syria. Mesopotamia, which means land between rivers, is the Greek name for the area, and it's here that early farms began to really take root on a much larger scale.
Okay. So that's the area we're in, and I guess we also have, make sure that starts at the start. This is our first video for this particular
topic.
Yeah.
Or time frame or whatever.
Some areas actually seem to have flourished during the time when the Sumerian king list claims that the Gutians ruled. One of them was Lagash, under its king, Gudea. Believed to have ruled between the years 2141 to 2122 BC, Gudea was a very pious ruler who claims to have built hundreds of temples for the gods, especially for Lagash's patron deity, Ningirsu. A humble man who only took the title of Ensi, despite the fact that he probably ruled over several cities, Gudea presented himself not as a powerful conqueror to be feared, but more like a shepherd protecting his flock, which in this case were the people that he ruled over. In nearly all of his major inscriptions, he simply praises the god.
See, before that had already been said by a different king, an older one, remember? Who said that I'm a shepherd and you're my flock, a sheep,
right?
You know?
Yeah. It's not an uncommon sentiment from these kings and whatnot.
Right. Well, even now, right? People worship leaders, think, oh, they're so great, right and left. They think, well, I meant right and left of the, like, say, not our left, but the Democrats and Republicans, or similar, conservatives,
liberals and conservatives,
liberals in Canada or whatever.
Yeah.
So to me, they put these leaders up, and they feel like they are doing it for us. Like you could almost say, you mean like a shepherd with sheep,
right? Yeah. Absolutely.
and I mean, even like. Say, I think that Bernie Sanders is a relatively decent. I don't agree with everything. Obviously, I'm more leftist than him.
Right.
But I would never worship him, even if he was like totally with my values. You're totally with my values. I don't worship you.
Exactly. I just agree with you. You're a person. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're just people, so nobody should be worshiping anybody.
Which I feel like is a very anarchist thinking to have, in a sense, and why. In a sense, on a deep level, I find it hard to be religious and anarchist. Not that some people seem to be able to do it.
Yeah, I find for myself, it seems contradictory. I can't reconcile the two ideas in my own head. I don't want to necessarily pass judgment on people who can. I just find that religion places something above other people, above humans, above other life, and it seems really weird to me to be anarchist and religious. But
right, and think about these kings, right? This is a similar statement of in the sense Jesus, right? Jesus is considered to be, the shepherd, and we're his sheep or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that the sentiment is also that the sheep need a shepherd. That's like, whereas it's seriously not anarchist of them.
Right, yeah.
To them is to think that, of course, you need a shepherd.
Right.
You're a sheep.
Yeah.
And me and Cory, like, we're goats. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not a sheep, actually. Show me a sheep that's walking on 2 feet. That's
all right. Go ahead. I just wanted to say how this theme we've already heard keeps going, and it's just
okay, sounds good.
Ningirsu and dedicates his life to the deity. This was a big change from the boasting of cities conquered and enemies slain that was often the hallmark of the royal inscriptions of the kings who had preceded him.
Pause for a second.
That's the end of that section, actually.
Right, okay, but I was going to say, he make a statement that this king did not, devoted himself to the gods. He didn't talk about conquering. Wait a minute. At the beginning of the show, you said some people were able to keep their kingdom during the Gutean rule. So, a vassal state doesn't talk about conquering people. Well, hell no. It's surrounded by the Guteans.
Right. Yeah.
I just say, just remind people the context. And it wasn't, oh, this one was just a religious person, not warlike at all. This is a good state.
Yeah.
Well,
except for the whole, yeah.
Except for the fact that the gigantic bad state supposedly was totally, threatening him in all ways, makes a good state act good.
Yep. That totally didn't make like him conscript people in his citizens into military service or any of that stuff. That he must have been totally fine.
Yeah. You get what I'm saying? I mean, of course, someone is not going to be super warlike if you're surrounded by warlords that are one unit and you're this little tiny nothing. That's all I'm saying is that, I mean, okay, he didn't act warlike. Well, duh, the whole region had been conquered.
Yeah, like if he wasn't, if he was still unconquered, I bet he was pretty, worried about defense though. Like he was, like he was from.
So you certainly don't want to threaten them by saying you're this great conqueror.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Let's not talk about spreading our region.
But you get what I'm saying? Instead of it sounding altruistic, like, oh, this one leader was just so spiritual.
He was a peaceful man. Yeah.
I'm not saying that that the order did that exactly, but I'm just saying you can see where that kind of thinking, oh well, this person was spiritual, so see, he wasn't warlike. No.
Probably,
in fact,
not accurate.
Well, because Mesopotamian in general, your deity was in a sense considered more powerful or something, depending on how much land and how many houses and how much empire you had or whatever,
right?
Land, people, slaves. So when you have all this commodity, your deity is considered more important. So, in a sense.
So it would be hard to be someone who wasn't sort of interested in expansion if you think that your deity deserves that kind of status, right?
You can see the problem, right? I mean, like, really, they said religion wasn't a problem. Well, with like just Cory explained, just that general arcing thought that all of them, in a sense, kind of shared. Well, no wonder there's the violence that goes along with this, because the belief is that if you love your deity, then you want your deity to be more liked or impressed and whatever. So then you go conquer more land because you can claim it for the deity, which is not that similar from what Christianity did and even what Islam did, forced religion by a sword. Yeah. So it's a similar kind of thing, whether the reason is because I conquer all these peoples and my deity will show that I'm powerful, or that those people then being part of us is now worshiping the deity and the deity happy about that, But yes, it does. It's not that far away from what we have to deal with now.
Yeah, the expansion of one set of beliefs because they think their belief system is superior, right?
Right.
Or their deity is superior. Yeah.
And for people that don't have sometimes religion or sometimes have both, they'll have a political deity, like a political figure that they just absolutely worship to the point of they're a sheep.
Yeah, that's right. Like, they ostensibly, the MAGA movement in the U.S. is Christians, but they certainly seem to worship Trump, right? In a very
definitely. I totally agree.
Deity-like way.
You would think that if they're supposedly closely following the Bible, that most of what he does would be, in a sense, what would Jesus do is not what you would say Jesus would do.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. They've thrown out the WWJD.
Well,
it used to be a bumper sticker, but they threw that one out.
Yeah, because don't tell me that you can find a passage in the Bible that would support this dictator here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I guess it's sort of off topic a little bit, but I often find myself confused by the intersection of capitalism and Christianity. And that's been Christianity has been used as an anti-communist tool for a long time, right? Like it was for sure in the 1950s, for sure, right?
But remember the Holy Land wars and stuff, and the Knights Templar people talk about all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the Knights Templar, remember, got a bunch of money.
Right.
And one of the things they got money was from having people, talking about Christianity. So you can, just a thought from mine, from what I know. I'm just saying that the pilgrims want to come down and safely not get killed and murdered or whatever, or robbed, and so raped, whatever. So that the Knights Templar, in a sense, are like, guiding people down. And so that people don't want to carry a lot of money. They give the money to, say, in France or wherever, somewhere else. They give money to the Knights Templar, and they, in a sense, write them a check or whatever, an IOU, which is not good to everybody because it only goes for a certain person. So in other words, they can't steal it from you.
Yeah.
Or harder. So then you take this and you go down to, say, Israel and say, I deserve $1,000 or whatever, in a sense. I'm saying it's kind of like a form of banking.
Right. Because this organization is holding my money. So, yeah.
Right. I'm saying, I'm making a comment. They became very wealthy.
Right.
In fact, even the kings, of France, I think it was France, right? They ended up killing them or something on Friday the 13th or.
Yeah, it could be.
Spain. Anyway.
I do not know that.
It's not a place I have expertise. I just have a loose, remembering of the stuff. And I'm just saying that how it relates to Christianity is because Christianity was, in a sense, very integral in banks.
Yeah.
And wealth. That's also why it's a stupid trope when everyone always talks about Jews being, the wealthy. It's like, Christians weren't? Are you fucking crazy?
Right.
What the fuck?
Yeah. And actually, I was listening to Debt. I think Debt, the First 5,000 Years by David Graeber, and he talks about like in Islam and Muslim countries there was a system like that as well, where there was like usury or interest was looked down upon, except in certain cases. And
it's in the Jewish Bible too. It talks about that in some places.
Right.
Christians, they seem to totally.
So it's not just Jewish people, right? It's like Christians, Muslims, like
various. Yeah. Well, that's all I was saying. It's ridiculous when they. But then in general, I mean, the problem with stuff is, even if, in a sense, you could attach some ancient fact to that, right? And said, well, at one time, Jews were rich, and.
Yeah. So what, right?
I mean, I'm just making a comment that I was just go like, I think you're giving it more than it would deserve. Even if you said there's certain companies, it's like you're just picking and choosing. How many companies can you pick and choose and point to billionaires?
Yeah, that's right.
Like there's isn't inherently greater about these people.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like the existence of billionaires is bad. No matter where they came from, no matter who they are, and no matter
right. So they're bad in China, which now has more, billionaires than us, and has more millionaires, if I remember right, in their like Congress in a sense than our, or their whatever council than our Congress. So I mean, and that's supposedly, I would say, the one that a lot of people seem to champion, especially that are Marxist-Leninists, as a state I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, actually, I was listening again. I was listening to something about like the Sino-Soviet split, and how how Mao and China they disliked the route that Russia was going, or the Soviet Union was going after after Stalin died. and how like, so they were still, or Maoist China was still like way more communist than the Soviet Union.
Right.
But then they also like, they started introducing like market capitalism and like started like trying to alleviate, you know, work in concert with the global capitalist system. So it's like nobody's communist if they're in the global capitalist system.
Right, but like I told you, if we, at least to me, if we could focus more on labor value, in other words, like say a product, right? The product has so much for its ore, right? Say it's like a jewelry or something,
Right.
And so the jewelry has this value. Of course, someone had to go dig it up, and they are owed their value for digging it up. You know what I'm saying? Including, but I'm saying, but all these different values are put on stuff. Labor is a value, like there's a whole set of different values. What I told you, the biggest problem I see with capitalism is it tries to give as small value as possible to the labor compared to what they deserve. Like say, if you go to work, like I was trying to tell you, that you go to work and say your value is 40, 50, whatever, $100 an hour, but you only get $5 or minimum wage.
Yep.
What the fuck?
Or I can specifically relate this to a job that I know, where the employee makes a good wage at roughly $400 a day, but the company makes $20,000 a day off of the facility that worker works at.
Right.
And that, like, so there's 400 out of 20,000. That's a big.
But so I'm just saying that.
So, yeah.
What, at least for me, one of the just unstoppably unethical things that capitalism does is it basically doesn't make money on the product alone. Like, because the end result is what I'm talking about. It makes money all along as much as possible, and it has no ethical problem robbing the worker to about slave, and if they could, slave wages. They pay a quarter if they could. Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, or less. I mean, fuck. There's the internship. You're gonna work for free. So I mean, there is absolute, because they. So it's, I don't have a problem in a sense if we could work where the final product is where you're getting the money, not off of the workers' backs. I mean, that's why, like you said, you only have billionaires because you didn't pay your workers.
Yeah, that's right.
Even if they said, oh, well, also because there was a lot of products that got cheap, or okay, that's still, you made money unethically, to me, is right there.
Yeah,
where you took wages that in a sense the worker should have earned.
Yep, that's right. That without the worker, you would not have been able to make.
No, absolutely not. But I'm just saying that for me, the hardest thing to ever accept that would be that that worker's worth more, and you just stole from the worker. That's unethical. Period.
Yeah, that's
Done. So they say, well, I don't want hierarchical stuff as like an anarcho-capitalist, but yet you're totally fine with that stealing from the labor, or they say I don't want taxes. So you don't want to pay the 15%, but the 90% of your wages being stolen. That's totally okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
What the hell?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's like the meme or whatever. Like, for people who hate taxes, just wait till they hear about profits.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's actually way worse than taxes.
Yeah, it's so much worse. Yeah. But I guess we might as well start reading our script. So we've got third millennium BCE. The third millennium BCE spanned the years 3000 through 2001 BCE, or 5,000 to 4,000 years ago or so. This period of time corresponds to the early to middle Bronze Age, characterized by the early empires in the ancient Near East. In ancient Egypt, the early dynastic period is followed by the Old Kingdom. In Mesopotamia, the early dynastic period is followed by the Akkadian Empire. In what is now northwest India and Pakistan, the Indus Valley civilization developed a state society. The civilizations of Sumer and Akkad in Mesopotamia became a collection of volatile city-states in which warfare was common. Uninterrupted conflicts drained all available resources, energies, and populations. In this millennium, larger empires succeeded the last, and conquerors grew in stature until this great Sargon of Akkad pushed his empire to the whole of Mesopotamia and beyond. It would not be surpassed in size until the Assyrian times, 1500 years later. In the Old Kingdom of Egypt, the Egyptian pyramids were constructed and would remain the tallest and largest human constructions for thousands of years. Also in Egypt, pharaohs began to posture themselves as living gods made of an essence different from that of other human beings. Even in Europe, which was still
Pause
largely...
for a second.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this is where, just to go back to the thing we talked about last time, Graham Hancock, when he talks about all the things together, and I said I don't agree with his thing of someone being taught. So how I see it, like a ziggurat, right, from Mesopotamia, because I think they relate to mountains. That's, in a sense, my crazy thought is that, speculation, not crazy, but my speculation is that they all relate back to mountains. So when I say they're all connected, what I don't mean like is in Graham Hancock's,
right.
Somehow everybody taught them how to make things. I'm saying the core belief myth, or a monomyth, in a sense, whatever, like the starting essence then spreads out and becomes all these different structures that look like pyramids and mounds and whatever. So a ziggurat is considered in Mesopotamia, which is like before the pyramids, and they think that maybe there's could have been a little bit of relation to them, like in Egypt, because Mesopotamia and Egypt interacted a lot. So, but the first one actually is in, I think, Iran, and although the White Temple down in Eridu, I think, remember we talked about our other.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Right. So Eridu, yeah, remember? So, in a sense, what it is on top of the thing, in a sense, is like the house of the god or goddess or whatever, or deity. So it's, when you understand mountains, that's what I'm saying. That mountains inherently, like a monomyth, I think, up in Siberia and comes down with all these people migrate ideas. But like it goes to Iran, and then Iran, in other words, so Iran, the idea, in a sense, goes from the mountains of, say, Central Asia to the steppe. Then the steppe people take it to Iran, or it could be the same people from the mountains. But then that kind of stays. But like I told you, dogs 7,200 in a sense go into the Arabia, the Middle East, Iraq, Iran, all from Iran.
Okay.
Originally, they can be traced, to Siberia 10,000 years ago. All these different dogs are moving around.
Right. Yeah, I recall
so
some of that.
My point is, I'm just saying. So I'm saying people come down with these like bigger beliefs, just like think of it, the similar concept of what I'm trying to say. Not like Graham Hancock one taught everybody. I'm more saying like the Destain language splits after Siberia, probably in Alaska or something.
Okay.
And maybe in Yukon, Canada. I don't know exactly, but somewhere in there in the Americas probably. But it could have split right before, but I don't think so. I think it split right after. But when it split, some go down to the Haida and the Twiget and the Pacific Northwest, which become clearly a certain kind of totemism. And then other ones go down, and even the Navajo, right, are actually, in a sense, linguistically connected, but not exactly culturally. This is
right.
What I'm trying to say. You start with this previous, because what there is basically a creator. They all have it, but they all experience it different ways. Right. They all have different origins of how that started or how that related, but they all. So this is what I'm trying to say is that I'm not claiming, like Hancock, that they brought all, mathematics, all these, things like as a package and just gave it to them.
Right.
I think it's more like a monomyth, like with the Destain, where all these other ones are connected, but yet you read them and they don't sound totally connected. But they all are kind of totemistic clan structures. See what I'm saying? So you start to see some of the similarities, and they also have mountain beliefs often. They also have thunderbird or crow or eagle or some sort of a bird thing that goes back even to Asia. So you can see these similar things, even though they're not really similar. Now, that's how I see the connection in a sense to like the Pacific Northwest and all that. Yeah, all the way down to California, because even like the people that went down to California also are related to Alaska. So they bring these ideas all the way down the coast. So anyways, my point is I'm trying to say is, but then when they go to the Midwest and everything, and then down the Southwest, they change a little bit. By the time you get there, they look like two completely different things.
Right.
But we know for a fact they all, in a sense, say 8,000 years ago, were one thing, or one variation of things or something. So I'm just making a comment. That's how, in a sense, going back to Mesopotamia. So the idea, in a sense, of these mountain beliefs, which also go, I think, at the same time or same area, sort of, because the destain are come from the sea, and sea comes from sort of the area up in between or related to, that area of Asia.
Okay.
Like North Asia, like Siberia, like Lake Balka, or even maybe the Golden Mountains, but the northern, atmosphere of that going over. And then those people then also went down. So why I see these mountains beliefs, because see, everyone always thinks of pyramids, like I told you before, they forget about the mound cultures coming from, the Great Lakes all the way down, and also the shell mounds all the way down the coast.
Right. So they don't necessarily connect them in any way.
Right. People aren't thinking about how, and then how that also relates to the South. And when I'm not saying that the mound builders that built dirt mounds told the people, I'm not saying this. So I'm not saying that they told them, here's how you do stone things. No, I'm saying It's a passed on tradition of these, goes back to, like I was saying, mounds in a sense relate to ancestors, the gods, and mystic animals. It's a spirit realm in a sense, right?
Yeah. Like it makes sense to me that things move around as people move around, and they change as they encounter different scenarios and different people and different stuff.
And those people also have their own ideas.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm not. So this goes back to what I was saying. To me, I feel and speculate that there is a connection to like these mound structures and pyramids and all this.
Right.
Very, very loose in a sense connection, because it's not how exactly to do it. What it is to me, it's a relation to the sky and the ground. It's a relationship to the mountain top, which relates in a sense to the when I say spirits, what I mean of ancestors, I'm talking about like afterlife.
Okay.
It's like going up into sky, because in a sense, heavens, all the similar mythology to me.
Yep.
So that's the same thing I'm saying. Well, the verse ziggurats, like in Mesopotamia, they say it's the house of the gods. So then you get to, this is what I'm trying to say, my relation to pyramids, like in Egypt. So when the pyramid, what did it say about the pharaohs, right? It said the pharaohs wanted to become deities or whatever. In a sense, deified or whatever. And so then they're being placed up, in a sense, in the pyramid. They're being placed in the mountain, sacred mountain. What's on top of the mountains is the spirits and is the gods. So if you're saying that I am both, in a sense, both a spirit, in a sense, and a god. So I'm just saying, and then the Kurgans, the same thing to me. It's the people are being buried, and then these mountains, in a sense, are built on top of them. But and then dome, the difference kind of between just like the Adena culture, which one of these days we're going to talk about mounds, because I really like this stuff. So I can tell people my ideas. But so the mound cultures, the Adena, have similar, not that they were taught, just that in a sense, I'm just saying they have, because it's a similar thinking: house, mountain, afterlife, in a sense. Gods,
right. Yeah, it could all have a similar root, right? Like it doesn't have to be exactly the same thing.
I'm trying to say is that I feel that there's a sense similar root to this, that mountains relate to houses of the gods. So all these mounds are like pseudo mountains relating to a house of the gods, or a house of the ancestors or whatever. So I'm just saying, so you can see like the Kurgans that have stone ones. I mean, have wood structures, houses, because that's what they lived in, and then they build them out of. In the Adena in Ohio, I'm talking about in Europe, so over the Black Sea or whatever, Ukraine or whatever, or the Romania, actually. So, but then over in the Adena culture in the Great Lakes, which is one of the first, and then later comes the Hopewell. The Odina, which I think it's 2,500, if I'm right, something. Maybe,
Okay.
maybe something like that. Anyways, it's not. But anyways, I have a general grasp of what it is. So the Adena culture, some of the structures have, if I remember reading right, that some of the structures have wood things inside. So they're just similar with people in it. So similar, like I was saying, to the Kurgans. So that's what I'm saying. When I say that I think that this stuff is kind of connected, I do not mean, like him, that people who built Kurgans then decided to, they were white, decided to go and somehow, transmit their knowledge. No.
They didn't go and teach.
Issue with him saying that because, I don't see any DNA that does that because I really care about DNA. Then the one he said, which is R1b. R1b shows, in a sense, to me, from the research, and is that there's, in a sense, two pulses, kind of, mainly. So the one main pulse, because just to explain this. So one main pulse is basically somewhere from 26 to 20,000 years ago into native DNA that then crosses maybe 15, 12,000 years ago. I don't know. Something like that, right?
Okay.
14, I don't know. But so, okay. At that time, they could just walk because there wasn't this ice problem, right? So, and that DNA shows them going straight across the Bering Strait into the Great Lakes and then also straight down. Okay, which in today, all the DNA looks like it's in that place. They've said other reasons why they think there's some of the DNA there, but I'm just saying the boat, to me, the old one goes there. Has nothing to do with seafaring. Nothing. And in fact, like I said, and he says, well, they're over in the Americas, must have seafared. Now, at that time, they just walked.
Right.
So all the other, in a sense, DNA is A, B, C, D, X.
Okay.
If I remember right. The different haplogroups I'm talking about, different kinds of DNA, which relate to different, not exactly different cultures or something. Could be all the same culture, different DNA, but certainly different. And they hello, and they kind of relate to different times. Okay, but like say the mound builders, okay, they don't have R.
Okay.
They have A, B, C, D, X, but not R. Then you go down to the Mayans, and they have A, B, C, D, X. They don't have it either. So that's kind of a problem, right? If they're everywhere supposedly they're showing up with this DNA, they're not at, and where they're at actually matches the coming in at like 14 or 12 something 1,000 years ago. Which let's assume he thinks those were advanced people. What happened when that people came in at that time? That's called Paleo-Indians. And Paleo-Indians are also what's then called the lithic stage. Because the advanced, I'm not saying that they're not advanced. Lithics are, I'm sure, harder than I can make. But especially some of them, like Clovis points and whatever, pretty damn amazing. Artistic ability with stone.
Right, eh?
And I'm not saying that they couldn't have had some sort of, other cultural things like math or looking at stars. I'm sure they did both to some extent.
Right.
But they weren't super advanced. And they certainly didn't build, in a sense, mounds anything by that time. And so to think that somehow this culture that he says goes over and he attaches the DNA, like I explained, but that DNA shows old or super young. Like it's in 1400s or whatever that, conquistadors and,
It's way too new.
Right. So it's either super old or super new. It's not what he says. It doesn't match. To me, if I had a concept, but I try to be ethically honest. If I have a concept, even if I think it's awesome and everything seems that, but all of a sudden the evidence, debunks that, you know what you do? You put that one and go away.
Yeah.
Because that one's not right. So to think that somehow they traveled around Dillis and never mixed with anybody, except when he shows the DNA in the Midwest, and I'm like, yeah, that DNA is probably there since 12,000 years ago.
Right.
and they came over a land bridge.
That's way too long.
So they weren't seafaring. So
Yeah.
saying they're there as evidence of your culture, how exactly do you get to that?
Yeah.
And then worse than that, like I said, is that all these places that built, like I said, because I think there's a relationship to building the mounds, which are huge, like pyramids, and some of them eventually become pyramids or pyramid-like. It's because it also goes back to me, mounds. Mounds are built, like I said, to mainly two purposes: a burial mound and a platform mound or whatever, which is kind of like a pyramid or temple. But it also made a few shapes of animals and stuff. But that also has religious significance, I believe. So, but I'm saying, but the main two things, though, is a lot of burial mounds and a lot of platform mounds, which later, relate to or all almost look like, and sometimes they even call them pyramids.
Okay.
But sometimes what they look like is like a big mound and then on top of it, a little house. Well, it goes back to, like I said, you have, in a sense, the deities or whatever, up at the house, or you're able to commune with the spirits up at the house because that's closer to the spirit realm or whatever.
Right.
So to me, like I said, I was going back to the things. So both Mesopotamia has, and also Egypt, like going back to Egypt, not that they interacted between each other, just a similar, I think, mythology relatedness.
Yeah.
Is what I'm talking about. So
Makes
in
sense.
Egypt, their primordial creation story is, in a sense, this earth mound that's like a pyramid comes out of the first water, in a sense.
Okay.
And so you get like, it's the sacredness of the land itself. And then also, like I said, so you see at the mountain, it's like a mountain, which is what I told you. The people that built ziggurats in Mesopotamia also believed it was the mountain of the thing. So
Right.
the one difference, though, is that it's made for burials, which I think puts the kings, which same thing you see in Mesoamerica and in, say, Florida with the shell mounds, is that they build some as, say, pyramids, probably for the deities, but they built some also where, in a sense, elite lived on at the level of, say, spirits and whatever. They're special. They're above the hierarchy.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that's also, you can see a relationship of what, in a sense, like when they show hierarchical, they show generally a pyramid design. I'm not saying that it's exactly related, but I'm saying I could see where that is a similar thinking about this mountain, because only some, in a sense, are at the top and a lot of people could be at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and like I said, greatness or whatever, God beliefs, ancestor spirits, whatever. Because see, just like in the Danes, so a lot of there's not a lot, but because a lot of them are different, so I don't want to say a lot, but there are ones where, in a sense, the Thunderbird lives in the mountains, and there's even one that says that mountain is actually in the sky. Like
okay.
Something floating or whatever, a mountain floating in the sky, like clouds, whatever. But I'm just saying, so you could see the similar thinking that it relates to the sky, and then like there's two big pyramids in Mexico. One's related to the moon, one's related to the sun. So in a sense, and they saw them in a sense as deified, or anthropomorphic or whatever, in a sense. So I'm just saying that you have these still the similar thing. So that's my position, just so people grasp what my position and why it really isn't like his position at all. I'm saying indigenous people did it. Yes. Indigenous people were amazing, came up with the math, came up with the stuff. Nobody taught them, in a sense. Or,
right.
What I'm saying is that the mythology, though, these, beliefs that, just like to me in Asia, they have the gods of fire. And then also in the Americas, they have the old gods of fire and stuff like the Aztecs.
Right.
But I'm saying, I'm not saying that someone came straight across and taught them that. I'm saying that monomyths came over and then adapted into this.
Right. And so they, like you say, like they have similarities, but differences because of the different areas.
I think, like I said, that's why, but I don't like, his thing, because not because it's just displeasing to me, but because the evidence doesn't show it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of it, his, like I said, sources of talking, the code speak of Cro-Magnons and than saying, well, the Caucasian builds, came in and did this, and supports it by one myth, that there's white people or something with the Aztecs. But I was thinking in general, yeah, but they see I can't remember now who, but I believe it's in the Americas, but there's like cloud people. So there's a belief that so someone being white doesn't really mean maybe skin the way you're thinking is all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah.
And to say that there was like this. So when they see an albino animal, Native Americans often because it's a spirit animal, right?
Right.
So saying that a person was a white snake doesn't to me mean that it has to be a white person.
Right. Yeah. It could be
thinking
something
albinoism,
else,
or what it really, I think my albinoism is because I think it relates to spirits and to afterlife and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's almost certainly not like a literal explanation of their skin color.
Right. Well, at least to me, if you look at it, because I think you have to like have some context of what these people are thinking. So right. I'm just saying that if we limit it to that's all I was trying to say is our perception is that when we talk about that, as soon as we hear white person, we're thinking a certain, thing, but we don't
right.
get that. That's because we currently have been under, years of white supremacy bullshit. So
yeah, whiteness didn't exist in the same way at that time. So
that's right. I'm not saying there wasn't a certain time for me to 7,000 to 5,000. There wasn't maybe, like I said, this verging new racism.
Right.
But I think that it wasn't even like, I believe as much as now, in the fact that it's only race. I think it was more racism and ethnocentrism and religiosism in a sense. You're a different culture, you're a different color, you get what I'm saying? So that's 7,000 years ago I'm talking about, I'm not talking about now.
Right.
But
yeah.
So I'm saying is, I don't think that it would be correct to say they were just racist and tried to go into Europe and say, kill every dark person. I don't think that is accurate. But to say that it was a motivation, part of their seeing people as less than them is their color, their culture, their religion, their stuff. So all of it as a group of ideas, I'm saying.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it would, like you say, it wouldn't be divided into race the way things are divided into race now. But
right.
it definitely, like differences in how they viewed certain people would lead them to behave in negative ways towards them or try to
which would involve racism to me. It's just that it wouldn't be in a sense that be the only or the main factor.
Yeah, it seems like it would be hard to place racism on, like as we see it now, onto people from that time, because we don't actually know necessarily how they viewed.
Yeah. But we do know that how it interacted. There must have been a favoritism towards light skin. But even that, let's just say this. So let's just say that the favoritism for white skin, though, once again, going back to the white animals, may not have been like a hatred of the other, but some sort of a glorification of white as being spirit, or I'm not saying I know this. I'm just saying that how I can conceive of or speculate on a possible thinking could have been that not only these people are different, we're from the star people or whatever, or the clouds, so we're part of the spirit, so we're
right.
You get what I'm trying to say is that you have these ways that people come to racism in a sense, are not the same ways. It wasn't like they were taught neo-Nazism and they became racist.
right. Yeah, that's right.
That's all I'm trying to say is that. So I think it's wrong when people think that it didn't happen after that, because obviously somehow you took a basically brown, or a lot of portions of Europe, especially Southern Europe, are brown, and then turned them all white. I mean, some of it happened, through interbreeding, but you have, like with the Beaker people specifically, you have 80 and 90% population removal. I mean, it's like
Yeah, something caused that genocide, right?
Yeah, it's not that's
Yeah.
a massive, thing. And like I said, same thing with that 7,000 to 5,000 is you have, that huge drop in the male lineages of most of the
Right.
things.
Yeah.
So somebody is taking the women and not letting the men procreate. So
Right.
yeah,
Something.
I mean,
yeah,
there's definitely
something.
something, but I was saying is I think it's wrong to totally is it only was to try to do that. I don't think that probably is the case. I think there was a favoritism though for whiteness for damn sure.
Yeah.
Even I heard this one guy say that even the Yamana who passed the Indo-European languages to Europe and stuff, that even they preferred whiter than they were.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So there's a thing I watched where they talked about that the Yamana, whatever, the pastoralists from the steppes, that they weren't themselves totally white, but they tried to they preferred the cat's just deciding to she's not happy, don't do that,
she's in charge here. I don't know what you're doing. Yeah,
she's like, hey, this is my spot, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't really care what's going on.
All right, well, you can go ahead and do you have more to read? Yeah.
All right. So even in Europe, which was still largely Neolithic during the same period, the builders of megaliths were constructing giant monuments of their own. In the Near East and the Occident, during the 3rd millennium BCE, limits were being pushed by architects and rulers. Towards the close of the millennium, Egypt became the stage of the first popular revolution recorded in history. After lengthy wars, the Sumerians recognized... Right, eh? Yeah, good for them. After lengthy wars, the Sumerians recognized the benefits of unification into a stable form of national government and became a relatively peaceful, well-organized, complex, technocratic state called the 3rd dynasty of Ur. So actually, like this, this was written in a certain way, right?
Right. Tell me that is written by an anarchist. No.
Yeah. The Sumerians recognized the benefits of unification into a stable state. Wait, no, I don't know if that's quite right. You mean the leaders?
Yeah, that's how states come into power. People just all decide, you know what? Let's all do this. I'm not saying it's an impossible thing to happen, but that's not likely that. But even usually if they did it for the thought of then conquest, because it's not like they did it and then didn't push any ideas,
right,
or new territory or whatever, wealth.
Yeah. So this dynasty was later to become involved with a wave of nomadic invaders known as the Amorites, who were to play a major role in the region during the following centuries. There are about 5 wars from 5,000 to 4,000 years ago. We talked about this already a little bit. They have the Battle of Bangwan, Battle of Uruk, Sumer Elam War, and the Lagash War, and then the Battle of Zulu. So then, I guess that's the main 5 wars in 1,000 years.
Yeah, that's the main one. But my point was to show that, and I don't know if there could be more. This is I got from Wikipedia, but my point was, you can see that if those were the bad years supposedly, and then the states getting together was the good years. Well, the good years seem more war than even the bad years. So I was just making a comment. It's like, it's everything got better. The fuck it did.
Right. Yeah. States actually just decided to do more war, but
that's what I was trying to show, that because I know people don't know this, so I just wanted to show them that it's not us making it up.
Right, eh? 2nd millennium BCE. So the 2nd millennium BCE spanned the years 2000 to 1001 BCE, or 4,000 to 3,000 years ago. In the ancient Near East, it marks the transition from the Middle to the Late Bronze Age. The ancient Near Eastern cultures are well within this historical era, The first half of the millennium is dominated by the Middle Kingdom of Egypt and Babylonia. The alphabet develops, and at the center of the millennium, a new order emerges with Mycenaean Greek dominance of the Aegean and the rise of the Hittite Empire.
And the Mycenaeans, Greeks, they're very similar in the sense later to the Minoans. They have ancient Eurasian from Siberia DNA, but the Crete people didn't have it. People on Crete at the time didn't have it. That's one of the differences that the two cultures.
Interesting.
So, and that goes back to the R DNA, which he likes to think flew around the world, or boated around the world. that they did go in a sense to Mycenaean Greece, which is understandable since they spoke in a sense, especially Greek, in a sense, proto, a form of Indo-European, but in a sense stemming from Proto-Indo-European. So the fact that they have the DNA and they also have language, what a shocker.
Right. Makes sense. The end of the millennium sees the Bronze Age collapse and the transition to the Iron Age. Other regions of the world are still in the prehistoric period. In Europe, the Beaker culture introduces the Bronze Age, presumably associated with Indo-European expansion. The Indo-Iranian expansion reaches the Iranian plateau and into the Indian subcontinent. Or
now, what they mean is in a sense, people, but also language and culture and religion.
Okay.
Because that's what I was trying to say before too. That sometimes people will say, "Oh, look at this what DNA went over," but you got to look at and then when it came over, what happened? That's why I said that Graham Hancock just saying, "Well, it's an advanced culture." Well, okay, maybe sort of for the Paleolithic, but or something. I mean, for the time frame it was in, but at 14,000, but try to match that with the cultural levels at 6,000 is ridiculous.
Right.
Some areas were similar because there was very little change in a sense, but some areas had massive change.
It's almost like, from what it sounds like, sometimes because it's all just really long time ago, he's conflating various things that are happening, even though there's like you say, like 6,000 years or 8,000 years between these things. It's just like, it's all a really long time ago. So it's the same.
Right. So that's why I try to say what seems more likely, that our DNA comes in and only stone tools are made and a bow and arrow, whatever. But basic, they have fishing hooks, I think. So, I mean, super advanced to him, obviously. And then no real monuments. And then, unless you want to say like at maybe after 9,000, but then they've been thousands of years nothing. That would mean they advanced. Guess what? Indigenously. Not saying. And see, if he would have said like they had some monomyth, I could maybe agree with that, depending what myth you're talking about,
right?
And where you're relating it to. But to say that they have the whole thing and that's ridiculous. And like I said, so. Because like there's no monuments in a sense at a certain time. Like the mound builders start at like maybe 6,000 and down, and even the red paint culture at 7,000 to 5,000 up in Labrador, Canada, has in a sense the oldest sort of dolmen looking thing, where it's a pile of stones that looks like a mound, it has a body inside of it. I think it's a child or something. I can't remember that off the top of my head, but it So it is actually a few hundred years older than the ones in France, which became the Dutton. And it's not that they came across that DNA X, is what the DNA had. That X DNA comes in a long time ago, but then eventually built stuff. Still, to me, all coming from Siberia and these previous, beliefs. But then they take it and adapt it. Because not all of them did that. So that's what I was trying to say, is that they weren't taught to build these dolmens. They came in with this similar to me type of religious thinking. Right. And then they built dolmens indigenously.
Makes sense.
And then they have these mountain beliefs, and they built shell mound and pyramids and shell mound burial mounds and whatever temples for their, or platforms for their elite, in a sense. Especially the ones in Florida are obvious to see that. They built like humongous areas, covered them like flat whole grounds you could like have tons of stuff on, then built mounds on top of that. So I mean, so they built like a flat platform, sort of, in a sense, and then they built mounds up all over. Yeah, absolutely not trash. So when people think just shell mounds are trash, like, certainly you're not talking about that.
So intentional. There's no way.
Well, yeah, it's beyond unintentional. Yeah. Even to me, the ones up in the Pacific Northwest and in California. Problem about California, and even probably some of the Pacific Northwest and other areas, like in the East too, they had big old shell mounds, Maine, and all the way up to the Labrador, Canada, all the way down that coast, practically. But so these, in a sense, to me, are still these similar belief structures. They're not that drastically different, even though they are different.
Right.
But so I'm just saying that to me, though, it's this beliefs. Not that these people taught these people exactly. You know what I'm saying? I think that you come with this indigenous thinking, and then you indigenously interpret it, and then it becomes cultural to that area and whatever.
Right.
Just like I said, which is easier to kind of see within the Dane language. So all the things that are connected to it, don't have, in a sense, the same thing, except they have a monomyth. They all have a creator.
So there's your root, right? There's your start.
Have this, a great spirit or great mystery or whatever they want to call it. Once again, like I said, it's not that they name it all the same thing, but it is when you hear it and you get it in context, and that there was all a point when they all, in a sense, split off, say maybe in the Pacific Northwest or higher. The point is that when it split, it came with these ideas. And that's the thing good about language, and also be able to trace ideas. Mm-hmm. So the first split in the Dane, it looks like to me, goes to the Twicket. So out in the Pacific Northwest, it's very totemistic, totem poles and everything, or whatever. So, and a lot of bird, crow, I think it's, and even I think there's one, or is the Haida, I can't remember, that have one where the Thunderbird picks up a whale or whatever.
Okay.
But so it's supposed to, but I'm saying is, in these beliefs, though, I'm saying, then when you see them other places, right, then I'm talking about the Nadane. So just saying, in that one language structure, all these other ones with these collected myths have this similar creator. So I'm saying that you can tell that it's related, but that's the kind of stuff I'm saying. Indigenously, of course, they changed it. It's not, the indigenous people brought the language with them, and they had some cultural beliefs, and then they went to new areas, and since they adapted or whatever their own. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to say.
As they do, right?
Which to me, that's what I think. So, and that matches to me better the evidence than what he's saying.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So he's like, there's some kind of a connection. I'm like, I can kind of agree with that. It's white people talking. What?
Yeah. You seem to have made a leap there, man.
Like, it's okay. How do you say it? Oh, the RB1, because it's in there. I'm like, okay, but there's two pulses for RB1, and it has nothing to do with seafaring.
Right.
Other than maybe the 1400s, but they're kind of like too late for all of your beliefs,
Yeah. Okay. So the Indo-Iranian expansion reaches the Iranian plateau and onto the Indian subcontinent, or Vedic India, propagating the use of the chariot. Mesoamerica enters the pre-classic or Olmec period. North America is in the late Archaic stage. In maritime Southeast Asia, the Austronesian expansion reaches Micronesia. In sub-Saharan Africa, the Bantu expansion begins.
In Bantu is the expansion in Africa from basically the in a sense the West all the way down to South Africa.
Okay.
From Central Africa and down to South Africa. That's what that one guy was talking about. Zulu. Zulu is related to the Bantu expansion. Zulu now is in South Africa, or Southern Africa, I should say, not South Africa. Southern Africa. Because South
not
Africa,
in not in the
its own
country of South
country.
Africa.
Not what I'm talking about.
Yeah. The southern section of the continent.
There we go. I just said, you're right. I gotta say it correct. I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm talking about.
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's also why I try to, even though, I don't think I need to, every minute, but I do like to talk about that my beliefs in a sense are speculations. The reason why is I don't want people to think like I always know everything. There's things that I think are highly likely to my speculations, but I try to give reasons to why that is. But as you already seen, I am more than willing for it to be wrong. So, which I think, to me, any honest thinker really should. I don't care how wild your thinking is, or how you think you're better than the mainstream or something. You should be willing to be wrong.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean,
that's right.
I think it's a healthy epistemic attitude, which I consider fallibilism. It's a type of philosophy that believes that we are going to fall, which is period.
And I mean, it's just a fact that there's going to be people who have information that you don't have. Right. So you have to be open to that, or else you're just going to be wrong a lot.
Right, but I'm just saying it's just like I said that people should listen to me because I'm smart. What I really mean, I don't mean every belief I have.
Right.
So don't get me wrong. I mean, correct or say it correctly, not correct it, but say it more accurately. What I mean is that when I tell you you should think about your stuff, you should be willing to be wrong. When I say things of wisdom, then you should be listening to that because it's wise. is sort of what I meant. The fact that you should have belief etiquette and try to assess things before they come in and reassess them to make sure they're still accurate, maybe to new facts, and then if they're not, like with the millet thing for me, when the facts change, then I have to change my thinking, which is belief relinquishment. You have to let something you totally believe in just go.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I mean when I'm saying that it's, you should listen when I say things that are wise, because my goal is not to, in a sense, you even like with that's why I told you I don't care as much about, say, a normal historian or archaeologist when we talk about prehistory. Why? It's like an adjunct to help people grasp the big picture I'm trying to show.
Right.
It's other than that, it's the picture itself. Like they're focusing on it as you need to learn these historical facts so then history. And I'm saying you need to know historical facts so you understand how to make a better future and what was wrong.
There's a lesson here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that the more that you also realize how much we're the same and how it's been going on for a long time, I think it makes it easier to grasp why you shouldn't be racist, why you shouldn't be, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why you shouldn't be scared of different cultures. That's why,
it's like the first time people learned that all humanity started in Africa. It's like, okay, well, how can I be racist now? Right. Like, except that I was raised in a racist society, so I have internalized stuff. But the idea of some groups being superior to others is nonsense once you realize that we all originated in the same place.
Well, and also a lot of times things that we see like the end result.
Yeah.
So it's like in other words, it's like a capitalist that says, I produced, this whatever. And you're like, you mean the workers produced it?
Yeah, that's right. Like, go back. It was made out of what? So you mined that product, right? You created that, and then you did the work to make this thing. No,
they're like, oh, and then you designed it. Well, no, I actually didn't design it. Oh, so you put it together? Actually, I didn't put it together. You didn't get it out of the ground. You didn't design it. You didn't put it together.
So you didn't do anything.
Did you sell it? Well, no, I actually own the wealth that did all that. You're like,
So somebody else sold it. Somebody else designed it. Somebody else made it.
Literally, it's a true, like when they say, Elon Musk, was he out selling cars? I mean,
right. Yeah.
Did he make those cars? Did he find the stuff? Did he just do all the designs? Every single design was himself. 100% of his mind.
Absurd.
You get my point. I'm just saying. I know you do, but
yeah, 100%. what was it? There was some meme that Elon Musk posted the other day, and it's like something about critical thinking and analysis. And of course, there's lots of people in there like, dude, you don't do any of this. You don't apply any critical thinking or analysis. And of course, you get the Musk fanboys that are like, oh yeah, well he created the electric car and he did this and he did that and he's created Neuralink and blah blah blah. It's like, no man, none of that. Like,
well,
do you understand how any of this works?
Just like with the kings, in a sense, in these stories, that about history, that they put that the king built the pyramids. No, he didn't. Workers did.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
Like Sargon of Akkad invented
architect.
irrigation or whatever it was.
You know what I'm saying? But laborers put it together. Architect built it. That's not him either.
Yeah.
So he didn't come up with the design. And I'm just saying that, in a sense, he didn't probably invent the deity, right? It probably came packaged before him. He just lashed onto that belief, is what I'm trying to say. And then they maybe expanded on it. But I mean, for his own aims or whatever.
For sure.
But he still really didn't even do that. So the whole thing is really nothing to do with him. I mean,
yeah, he's just a parasite.
So, yeah. But I want to make a comment though about if I was being ethical though, would I say that all people that are capitalists have to die or something like the guillotine? I see some people. I don't agree with that.
I love a good guillotine joke, but
yeah,
I agree. Like, we'd be better off to simply expropriate their property and then re-educate, our society, right?
I agree.
So,
I totally agree.
And I do have real problems with people who are like, who demand that all people fall into the line of their particular way of being a leftist or a communist. And if you don't, then you quote unquote get the wall, or like
that's to me part of the problem, not the part of the solution.
Yeah, that's exactly part of the problem. That's that hierarchical thinking, right? Like the idea that I get to be part of the ruling party and you have to be a worker who scrubs my toilet, and if you don't, then you get shot. Sorry, no, that's not how an equitable liberatory society is going to work. That's just not how things are going to be. I'll clean my own toilet, thanks.
But people don't care who is stepping on their head. Just stop doing it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. I suppose we might as well keep going. Okay. Spending much of their energies in trying to recuperate from the chaotic situation that existed at the turn of the millennium, the most powerful civilizations at the time, Egypt and Mesopotamia, turned their attention to more modest goals. The pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom of Egypt and their contemporary kings of Babylon, of Amorite origin, brought good governance without much tyranny.
Yeah.
And favored elegant art and architecture.
You like that? Much? What do you mean by much?
Just a little tyranny, not too much. So silly. Farther east, the Indus Valley civilization was in a period of decline, possibly as a result of intense, ruinous flooding. Egypt and Babylonia's military tactics were still based on foot soldiers transporting their equipment on donkeys. Combined with a weak economy and difficulty in maintaining order, this was a fragile situation that crumbled under the pressure of external forces they could not oppose. About a century before the middle of the millennium, bands of Indo-European invaders came from the Central Asian plains and swept through Western Asia and Northeast Africa. They were riding fast, two-wheeled chariots powered by horses, a system of weaponry developed earlier in the context of plains warfare. This tool of war was
plains. They mean like the plains of Siberia, Russia.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Maybe you've been to Ukraine, but I think just Russia and maybe some Siberia.
Oh, okay.
But I think that they think the chariot was found. The oldest one, or at least the home of the people that made the chariots, was in Russia, and actually came down from there.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
Once again, ideas coming from outside. So when you see Egyptian chariots, well, actually they came originally from Russia, but okay, from the steppes. Well, I'm just saying it's why that when I say that these different ideas sometimes came down, it's not just like tools came down and there's no belief structures. All of a sudden, when the chariot comes, there's all these horse and wheel, like the wheel in the sky keeps on turning, journey.
Right.
Yeah. Relating to the sun, wheel in a sense, and deities were connected to both the chariot, even in Indo-European, but also, which is Indo-European, but I would say the Indian subcontinent, you have these deities, that ride chariots. So it becomes religion. So I was saying, so when people spread, and this is a shocker, when people spread their DNA and their culture, religion often follows. So it's not just people give you one tool and no culture at all. I mean,
yeah. This tool of war was unknown among the classical civilizations. Egypt and Babylonia's foot soldiers were unable to defend against the invaders. In 1630 BCE, the Hyksos swept into the Nile Delta, and in 1595 BCE, the Hittites swept into Mesopotamia.
There's some people that think that the Hyksos relates to the Jews. I don't think that's accurate, but in other words, Semitic speaking, but it could have been possible, but Jews.
Yeah, we've discussed that before, where like there were many Semitic speaking
right
cultures. So it's pretty hard to just say like, yeah, these guys definitely were, because they were also Semitic speaking.
Right. Because the reason why is because then they end up taking over. They try to relate to Joseph's story or think,
Oh, okay.
Because people trying to relate the Bible to historical facts.
Right.
I'm saying that those people, as it just said, were more likely related to Indo-European beliefs than, say, Jewish ones. Unless you want to say that Jewish beliefs are Indo-European beliefs, which there could be some parallels in that too. But certainly, by the time it got down to there, or if that's what happened, it wasn't a large impact. It's some impact, but not till later was there.
Yeah, I suppose if they interacted, then they're going to have some crossover.
Well, man, it's just
in beliefs.
Right. And I'm just making a comment that, especially when it's these cultures, in a sense that it's before Jewish writing really kicks off, because it looks like Jewish culture, possibly, if you want to attach it to the pigs, say, is like 3,200. And about that time, there's some origin language, not like a full Bible or anything, or Jewish religion, but texts, but maybe like a verse or a quote or something that later seems similar to the Bible.
Right.
It starts happening, or certainly by 3,000. But that's why, to me, like some people say that the Jewish religion is only that, or they'll say it's younger. Well, if you mean the full package. But I consider it in a sense, the roots of what Judaism came out of the Canaanite religion, which had relations with all this stuff, like say that even the Indo-European Semi, and then stuff from Mesopotamia, which are other Semitic, which have to do with the Amorites, because the Amorites religion almost in a sense became some of the Canaanite religion with some, in a sense, Egyptian, say, influence, in it.
Okay.
So then, in fact, they use some of their how they wrote the language, the first language, very similar to Egyptian.
Okay.
Proto-Phoenician or whatever. But and I'm just saying, so, but with the Hyksos go down, I'm just saying, to me, I don't buy that they were Jews going to take over things.
Right.
So, yeah. First off, here's the big thing. Wouldn't they have stories in Judaism about their great horse raiders going in and
if that was in their past, right?
Some slave that Joseph that becomes special because, you see what I'm saying? Totally different story. I mean, I think that story is also probably bullshit, but I'm just saying it doesn't match these horse raiders that were powerful and conquered Egypt. Do you think that the Jews had conquered Egypt?
Yeah, you would have a whole different, like you say, the the story of Moses and the
Right.
slave uprising would be a whole different story. It wouldn't be.
Yeah, the conquerors then got conquered, which eventually did happen, or kicked out. But so you could say, oh, well, you know, we were conquered Egypt and we ruled for a while, and then we left because they got powerful again. That would be the story of the Jews, not we went in there as slaves, like in Joseph was considered sold as a slave from his brothers, supposedly.
Right.
And then, you know, becomes in a sense a dream, you know, which is a magi in a sense, you know, a dream interpreter or whatever for the king, you know, supposedly, you know, and tells him to, you know, what his dream was, because his dream was something about so many, you know, bulls and crops or something, and then all of them were in 10 years of them being dead or something. He's like, oh, well, you need to store grain because the famine's coming. You know, and then a famine finally did come, because of course famines happened.
Yep.
Not magical.
Yep.
Store up for a famine. That was just good advice. Okay?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
You didn't have to have special nothing, Jesus, God, nothing to go. You probably should store up for famines. So, anyways, my point though is that that's supposedly, and then because of that, the king says, well, I can trust you, and then that one person eventually, then he welcomes in the Jews when he has a storehouse they can eat too, and that's not the same as these warlords going. That's all I'm trying to say.
It's a whole different. Yeah,
it's funny when they try to say, because even if that's true, this is a little get why it's I don't know why they even bring it up. Right. If it is true that the Hyksos are the Jews, then that proves the Bible is wrong. So either the Bible's wrong, which I'm totally fine with.
Yeah, sure. That doesn't hurt my feelings.
Yeah, okay. So the Hyksos, the ones that went in and they were able to overpower the Egyptians, were the Jews? Okay. Yeah. Well, the Bible is dog shit, like I thought. So if that's true, then the Bible is not accurate. I mean, where's the story of that? I mean,
well, yeah, that's right.
So you get my point. So I'm just bringing it up because in case someone hears that and thinks, "Oh yeah, that has to do with that." I'm like, yeah, I don't buy it.
Yeah,
doesn't seem accurate. Similar, maybe because it came down from the people north, and then on the way they could have picked up maybe some similar thinking to the you know Semitic peoples, and then brought that bundle you know into Egypt. But come on, you can't say it backwards. You can't say, well, for sure the Bible was talking about them, because I mean, Bible says they conquered Egypt. You know what I'm saying? No.
Yeah. Okay. The people in place were quick to adapt to the new tactics, and a new international situation resulted from the change. Though during most of the second half of the second millennium BCE, several regional powers completed relentlessly for hegemony, many developments occurred. There was new
hegemony, basically, in a sense, hierarchical. They want some status over everybody else, in a sense.
Yeah, it's the dominant culture, right?
Right.
So many developments occurred. There was a new emphasis on grandiose architecture, new clothing fashions, vivid diplomatic correspondence on clay tablets, renewed economic exchanges, and the new kingdom of Egypt played the role of the main superpower. Among the great states of the time, only Babylon refrained from taking part in battles, mainly due to its new position as the world's religious and intellectual capital. Okay. The Bronze Age civilization at its final period of time displayed all its characteristic social traits. Low level of urbanization, small cities centered on temples or royal palaces, strict separation of classes between an illiterate mass of peasants and craftsmen, and a powerful military elite. Knowledge of writing and education reserved to a tiny minority of scribes and pronounced aristocratic life.
So pause for a second. So just think, this is at a time we know, right? This is an advanced culture. Most people think Mesopotamia is the most advanced culture in the world. So to say that there was this level, right, in the Ice Age is out of context, big time. But let's even look at how are these people spreading their language so that everyone is literate.
Right.
No.
Clearly not. Right. Like they're
So
just.
they clearly are elitist as shit. So
Yeah.
if they came with stuff, newsflash, they're about elitism. So in a sense, so this hierarchical. So the fact that, you know, there's not that them at the top and thus our DNA showing to come at 4,000 or 5,000 or whatever he says, because they were hiding out in Antarctica, which there's no evidence of that either.
Right.
You know, is yeah, it's just it's. Oh, speaking of which, I had wrote on Twitter to some. I was talking to some archaeologists that I just became friends with because we have an equal desire to say why. Graham Hancock is wrong.
Yeah.
Trying to think of the way to explain it. So he said to me, this one archaeologist guy, he says, "Well, I don't like to use the word wrong in scientific discourse." And I said, "Okay, how about his ideas are wrong, that ancient apocalypse happened and then our DNA went over and, you know, sea navigated the Americas were white people and spread the knowledge to the indigenous cultures. That's wrong."
Yeah.
And I said, the ideas are wrong. But I don't know that he liked it totally better. But my point is,
not that he as a person is wrong, but that his ideas are just wrong.
Right. Well, because he said that because what he was saying is that, you know, the people that are sycophants for Graham Hancock, in a sense, or his ideas, that they hear anyone say he's wrong, they just love and jump on that. And I was like, okay, fine.
Yeah,
you know, but it's hard for me because I said, he said, well, Matt Dillahunty does it different. I said, well, Matt Dillahunty is a skeptic and I'm a rationalist. I'm just explaining how I see it. He's wrong.
Yeah.
It's impossible. How's that? I mean,
yeah. I don't know how politically correct I can put that he is wrong.
I mean, I understand, but I was thinking too that the archaeologist is assuming that I desire to talk to Graham Hancock people. Right. I know he does. I appreciate that he does.
Sure.
I already told you, I'm done with activism. I don't really have a large desire. I mean, if they're willing to grasp the points that I'm making, I'll explain what the points I'm making. But I am not going to talk to someone who is completely stuck in that all scientists are lying and they're covering up this white people, you know, started the world, whatever nonsense, you know. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard for me. I was thinking, man, it's hard for me to think about it as not wrong.
Because it's wrong.
I'm like
that's what it is. So how can
but I thought, you know, like I said, he said, well, we have empathy. I said, well, I believe in empathy and kindness. It's just, but I was thinking too, some people have it's a psychological thing. So they think that there's a certain way that people listen, in other words. Right. Some people, and this goes back even to my anti-theism, my anti-religionism. I had an archaeologist before complain that I'm too hardcore on religions. Right. And not that he said I'm wrong in a sense. He says I'm hurting people's feelings and they're not going to want to listen and all this. And I always think, well, then they'll listen to you. If you're so sure your ideas are ways to do it, then do it. But what I feel like, to me, they start with like this preconceived knowledge, because do you know that my way doesn't work?
Right. Right.
Have you asked me how my response has been when I go in public? Are you asking me difference in how I write a comment about a person who is drastically making comments that I feel are wrong? Like when someone says the earth is flat, you're wrong.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And I don't think that I'm convincing you by pretending that you're not wrong, or by being kind, you know, more kind. I can say that you're wrong and still be a kind person, right? Like,
but yeah, that I think that's what my position generally is. But I'm you know what? I told him, I said, you know what? I'm always open to be corrected. And if I need to change, then I always want to be open to change.
Yep.
And I realized most of the time I probably need to change some stuff. So, but I realized it's an assumption. This goes back to me to where people don't like anti-religious. Like even David Silverman, right? He would say anti-theist, and I said, well, we're both anti-religionists. And he said to me, well, yeah, but we don't say that because that scares people. And I'm like, yeah, but it shouldn't.
Yeah, and on what level do you say, well, the whole thing that I'm doing here scares people? So,
right?
How much do I hedge my language?
Well, that's
Like,
what I'm
I'm not
saying.
being
And,
hurtful.
but it made me start thinking about it. And I was thinking about too, like, because he said, well, especially in scientific communication. Well, does he feel the same in other areas like political? So, but why does it get a special? I always think of that. To me, like when people have conspiracy theories or religion, you know, why is that getting special treatment?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'm not, I think that and I try, you know, even in political, I try very hard to not just blast and say bad shit about people. So I feel like in general, I think people take me wrong when they see that I have really strong beliefs. I'm also pretty laid back about it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
still willing to listen and
yeah, I'm willing to be wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, willing to change. Even what that guy said, I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't just say he's a liar and he's wrong, or I feel like he's lying or he's wrong. Right. That's what I feel and say. And, but I was like, but like I told you, that's what people don't grasp. I'm a rationalist. I want reason to run, not my ego. Yeah. And so if that statement is an accurate one, I want to do it. Can I say it in a way? That's what I was thinking. Not that I have to do it, because I think what he wanted me to do is never use the word in a sense. And I was thinking, that doesn't feel right to me. I want to be able to grasp that clearly he's wrong, and here's why, in a sense.
Yeah.
But I realized that maybe I should. That's why I said to him, maybe I should just say his ideas are wrong, right? His ideas are not supported instead of sense. Maybe it
takes the personalization out of it.
Right. And I was like, well, at least that's how I took it. That I'm going to learn from. Mm-hmm. Not that I'm never going to say that people are wrong when they're wrong, but I'm going to say, or I'm going to try to decouple the person from the idea, which I normally try to do. But certain people sometimes just make me so freaking irritated that I'm not. So, in other words, that's another thing too. Is like I am open to sometimes learning, even if I don't totally agree.
Right.
Because I felt like he'd probably say that my atheism is too strong.
Yeah.
You know, because people have sacred beliefs they believe in, and I offend them. I know I got offended. I said I got kicked off of certainly LinkedIn because of religion.
Right.
I mean, that wasn't the reason I got kicked out of Facebook, but that was one of the reasons. But the other one really was that, I made a political comment they didn't like. But so my point is, though, I do grasp that people don't. But so I've had probably more experiences than most people of doing activism in public.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to interact with people in their face, not online. So when I say I know how to, in a sense, talk to people and stuff, I done it.
Right.
But once again, I'm not saying that mine is the only way. And like I told you too, when he said that, I was like, I can see where I should decouple the him from his ideas, and that's what I. So I still appreciate him saying it. I told him, thanks, but to me, I'm just saying that what I learned from it is that, like you said, it is the difference in he's wrong or his ideas are wrong. So I was like, that's how I take it. So, but this in general, to me, you should always be open to reason and rethinking things. And then I desire to be better, not somehow egotistically perfect.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, we know like a person can't be perfect, right? So,
exactly.
we're far better off accepting that humility and understanding that I can change sometimes than to be like, no, I'm perfect and I'm never flawed.
Yeah, but I'm saying that a lot of people need to get a better attitude of being. They get so uncomfortable to be wrong, or so uncomfortable, even just tweak a little tiny bit.
Yeah.
And I think that what that also means is you stay wrong. It's easier for me to trust someone who's willing to adapt than someone who doesn't want to adapt to anything, even when everything seems to be pointing to that.
Yeah. We used to say, like, in the skeptic community that people were more willing to change when it wasn't an idea or concept that they had attached their identity to, right?
Oh, definitely.
But it seems like more as time goes on, more and more people are attaching their identity to everything that they think and say and do. And so then if you tell them, well, actually, what's his name? George Washington's teeth weren't actually made of wood. And they go, oh, well, you're wrong and you're a liar. And that's just liberal media.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, so you've attached your identity to this thing? Like, but.
Well, yeah, I agree that to things that, and like you were saying there, do they really know? Did they ever really know? Do they,
Yeah.
They're in a sense, their post purchase rationalization is what it's a psychological term, but
yeah,
it definitely. But that's why I'm saying it's better to have a belief etiquette where you realize you're going to that part of it is we realize we're going to have to update. You realize this from the get-go. To me, that's why I know it seems stupid. I talk about those three things all the time, but that we should have reasoned belief acquisitions, good belief maintenance, and honest belief relinquishment. To me, if you do that called critical thinking.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it's supposed to be.
Right. I'm trying to give it to you in just so you can, ABCs, follow the things. But also it's important to me too, because it reminds me that needs to be the case, period. Which is, I told you, my one statement for skepticism is that all beliefs always should be open to, being amended or replaced.
Yeah. Updated based on new information.
New accurate information to me. So that's why I said I can't have that as my identity, because to me it's just one overarching theme, which is methodological skepticism in a sense.
Right. Yeah.
The one science uses. But anyways, but my point is, though, it's just a healthy epistemic attitude in a sense relating to evidence, or what we think is evidence. Because that goes back to, like I was telling you, axiology is helpful to remind you, okay, but when something is called evidence, does its qualities of what it's offering really resemble evidence? Like him saying, well, because of the cultures all over the world with similar pyramids, well, it must be an ancient culture went and seafared the whole world. Circumnavigate the planet. Like, what the fuck? So, especially, like I said, when the evidence is not bearing that out.
Yeah, yeah.
Are we finding every single site in the world with pyramids with our DNA? And if the answer is no, and not all coming at the time that should have been related to this trespass with new information, should be completely obvious. Now, the people from the Andes did come from other places, probably more north. But like I said, that certainly wasn't our DNA doing it.
Right.
So I'm just saying, but in general, so that's why, though, it's important to look at the facts, right? Well, so that's why I'm saying, too, that as a socialist or an anarchist that cares about these topics, shouldn't we get our evidence also of what happened in the past? Which I know anarchists have already previously done. So have socialists talked about this.
Yeah, but it's always good to have like multiple perspectives on it too, right? Like, because even though, like I say, like I'm reading David Graeber's book and his book with David Wingrove, and like they just have a different take on things. They have a different approach to it than what we're doing here, and like than other people are doing on their stuff.
Right.
So it's good to have those differing, like I think, different perspectives on the same kind of information.
Right, because and you're talking about, is that the book of everything or something, or the origin?
Yeah, the dawn of everything.
Oh yeah, I didn't remember exactly, but
yeah.
So And so how would you say reading that and then having us talk about what is your perspective?
Well, I'm not all the way through the book, but what I kind of get from it is that they aren't applying anarchist analysis to the things in prehistory, right? They're laying out different things, and they're saying, well, this is what happened in this area, and this is how we explain what happened in that area, and this is how it compares to this area or whatever, right? But they're not really applying an analysis that I can tell. I do that as I read it on some level. but I don't see them doing that analysis. And
are you and Jordan going to read that book?
What's that?
Are you
on Red Reviews?
Yeah.
I think that's the first book we're going to do actually in the new year.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Right
so
on.
I'm interested in what Justin what his thoughts are on it, because he said it really changed the way he thinks about things. So I'm really curious how that happened, and it'll be good.
Right on. Go ahead and
I guess
I was just saying, so that's great. And let's I look forward to it, definitely. I think that and that's what I was just saying. I appreciate your input and perspective too, because I know that when I read this stuff, I was like, whoa.
Right.
Yeah. I hear him talking and I'm like, man, that sounds like state worship, something fierce.
Yeah, like every now and then you get to a line in the text and you go, well, hold on. Like, you're just asserting that the state was good in this case, and like that they just didn't dominate their citizens. Like, it seems pretty weird, but
or making it this day is better because it less tyranny.
Right? Yeah. Without much tyranny. Well, hold on now. I think probably any tyranny is not good. So.
Yeah, but you get my point.
Yeah.
They totally, in a sense, without I think realizing it, gloss over some of the aspects like that. Just like when same thing. There's archaeologists who do queer archaeology, right?
Right.
I'm not saying there's not some that do go to cultural analysis. I'm absolutely sure there are.
Yeah.
There are socialists and anarchists that do archaeology or prehistory or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that a lot of them are not. Also, they are the culture they're into, their status or whatever. So,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the writing that we see, right? It's like the book Capitalist Realism talks about how like capitalism is so entrenched in our current modern society, the hegemony, right?
Right.
And so then people, they don't even think about it. They just put capitalism as the normal good way of doing things whenever they talk about stuff.
The best.
Right. And impossible to remove, like just the norm, right?
Well, just like I said, but I always think, yeah, but are you saying that my way couldn't happen? That you could just give the workers, even if nothing else changed, but the workers got, almost all their wages?
Right.
Let's say 95%, or whatever, 90%. If they did that, do you not think that the whole system, in a sense, would be able to facilitate itself better because it would be taking care of the person that's actually doing the stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, but I know everyone always goes, yeah, but that's never going to happen. And I go, well, of course, that's why I'm totally against capitalism. But
as long as people keep saying that's never going to happen, it just makes it harder. Like that's the thing. Like, why is it never going to happen? Because we're not fighting for it. Because people just sit here and they accept that this is the normal way of doing things.
Totally agree. Well, it's just like saying, when is a gay rights going to happen? Well, it doesn't magically appear out of nowhere, and the government, everybody decides, everyone needs equal gay rights. Like bullshit. That still isn't happening.
Even before I knew anything about Steven Pinker, that was one of my major issues with the way he wrote Better Angels of Our Nature, because it's like, I mean, things were really bad and now they're better. And how did they get, with no analysis of how they got there, no question of like what caused that. And then the assumption is that oh, this is the end result. This is where we are. And now things can't get any better because we've already reached this point. Well,
Right.
no, like, come on.
Yeah, I totally disagree with both of those. And also, to me, like, you're talking about how it was for women, or how it was if
Well,
you're
yeah.
not born into wealth. I mean,
Yeah, like, if you want to analyze, like you say, like how it was for women, and you gotta draw that line, you gotta connect that through line throughout history and see where the fight was, see how changes were made, where they were caused, what the cause and effect was.
it wasn't the state glorification, that's for sure.
No, it never is. It's always grassroots movements fighting against the state and
Right.
against those in power. It's always how it is.
Right, and then like way after that, a politician goes, "Oh, I agree now," and then everyone's like, "Oh, that politician's wonderful."
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Oh, look at this wonderful politician. Yeah.
Oh, look at how they changed. They used to hate gay people. Now they're okay because all the population wants it.
Right, like the Supreme Court decision gets to be the legalizing of gay marriage. That's the major role, right? And people forget about the fight that came all the way before that, and like all the history of oppression that was going on. Like,
Yeah.
oh, but being gay is on TV now, so it's okay, right?
Yeah.
But it's
Well,
just
it's gay
like
capitalism, so it must be done.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right, let's read some more.
All right. Near the end of the second millennium BCE, new waves of barbarians, this time riding on horseback, wholly destroyed the Bronze Age world, and were to be followed by waves of social changes that marked the beginning of different times. Also contributing to the changes were the sea peoples, ship-faring raiders of the Mediterranean. The origins of the sea peoples are undocumented. It has been proposed that the sea peoples originated from a number of different locations, such as Western Asia, Asia Minor, the Aegean, the Mediterranean islands, and Southern Europe. Although
so even in the reality of the sea peoples who went around and caused a bunch of havoc, it wasn't just one people spreading ancient technology.
Yeah, it was many different people from different places.
Yeah, which now if you said that would seem more logical.
Right? Yeah.
Ancient ideas that have no direct relation to the people that they are got
doesn't make a good title though.
Got filtered down from monomyths to these individualistic myths that then produced items that have a similarity.
Yeah, we'll just call it ancient apocalypse. Yeah. Although the archaeological inscriptions do not include reference to a migration, the sea peoples are conjectured to have sailed around the eastern Mediterranean and invaded Anatolia, Syria, Phoenicia, Canaan, Cyprus, and Egypt toward the end of the Bronze Age. The late Bronze Age collapse was a time of widespread societal collapse during the 12th century BCE, often related to war with the sea peoples between 1200 and 1150 BCE. The collapse affected a large area of the eastern Mediterranean, or North Africa and Southeast Europe, and the Near East, in particular Egypt, eastern Libya, and the Balkans, as well as the Aegean and Anatolia and the Caucasus. It was sudden, violent, and culturally disruptive for many Bronze Age civilizations, and it brought a sharp economic decline to regional powers, notably ushering in the Greek Dark Ages. So we have 24 wars from 4,000 to 3,000 years ago. Rather than list them, I'm just gonna. The list is in the notes.
Yes.
Check out the blog post. So now I've got Gudea of Lagash.
Right. This goes back to that king that goes to the people grasp what we're back talking about. It's back to the king that was able to, in a sense, have a rulership or something at the same time, or flourish, or at least survive at the same time that the Gudeans took power of the whole region. or what's assumed is the Guteanistic power, I should say, the old region.
Right.
Who knows if they 100% did that, or how they did that, or like you said, why they left him alone, or this one kingdom alone,
Right.
or maybe a few kingdoms alone may have had a whole bunch of reasons. Maybe he or that kingdom, whatever, told how to destroy all those other ones. I know who knows.
Yeah, that's just it. Yeah, it's tough to make any like real have a full understanding of what happened.
Right. Because they don't even understand exactly what impact to what level, other than they probably destroyed everything and ran the stuff. It's not super clear.
Right.
Biggest reason why I'm just saying is because they didn't have writing.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have
that makes
their
it
own
tough.
writing. So yeah, they had their own language, but they didn't have their own writing, and so who knows? And other people, you can only go off what they say. And as you know, sometimes when you talk about your enemies, you're going to say
you don't exactly write things accurately. Yeah, that's right.
Or say they're wrong.
Yeah, you might just say they're wrong.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is, so how you perceive them or talk about them or whatever is going to be biased and skewed.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying is that it's hard to totally know, because we don't have what their opinion, because they would have told more about what conquest, whatever. Not that it had been, once again, just because someone writes it down. That's another thing about thinking of the ancient apocalypse, attaching it to, things like Atlantis. Atlantis mythology is a made up story.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. And even if someone says, "Oh, it has some historical things," okay, and it's still a story, and it's still a part of mythology with elements that have nothing to do with reality.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm not saying that. Well, I'm just making a point about history. That not saying that if they write about themselves, that everything they write is accurate. I mean,
yeah, if you're able to, like you say, you combine multiple sources. But when you don't have multiple sources,
right? Well, because that gives you a clear speculation. If you, what is kind of like I was saying about the Nadane, when you read them separately, in fact, we're gonna one of these times is I really like about that time frame and the way that I like it, because we know it's a fact, and it also shows how varied it can be. I mean, so I'm probably gonna have to do a show on the Dane language, the religions. What I'm talking about, because that's matter to me, and how one could be so different than the other ones, and yet still have, in a sense, a shared lineage to grasp. Like I said, what I'm saying about how religions did and stuff, just like when I say shamanism spread all over the world. Well, it didn't spread the same thing.
Right.
Bigger, since monomyth ideas are similar, and then they filter out and adapt and change indigenously.
Yep. Oh, okay. Gudea of Lagash. Gudea was a ruler or ensi of the state of Lagash in southern Mesopotamia, who ruled circa 2080 to 2060 BCE in the short chronology, or 2144 to 2124 BCE in the middle chronology. He probably did not come from the city, but had married Ninala, daughter of the ruler Ur-Baba, who ruled from 2164 to 2144 BCE. Of Lagash, thus gaining entrance to the royal house of Lagash. He was succeeded by his son Ur-Ningirsu. Gudea ruled at a time when the center of Sumer was ruled by the Gutian dynasty, and when Ishtup-Ilum ruled to the north of Mari. Under Gudea, Lagash had a golden age, and seemed to enjoy a high level of independence from the Gutians. Gudea chose the title of ensi, or town king or governor, not the more exalted Lugal, or Akkadian Sarum. Gudea did not style himself god of Lagash, as he was not deified during his own lifetime. His title must have been given to him posthumously, as in accordance with Mesopotamian traditions for all rulers except Naram Sin of Akkad and some of the Ur-Thuri kings. The 20 years of his reign are all known by name. The main military exploit seems to have occurred in his year 6, called the year when Anshan was smitten with weapons. Although Gudea claimed to have conquered Elam and Anshan, most of his inscriptions emphasize the building of irrigation channels and temples and the creation of precious gifts to the gods.
Well, that the other video, right? He said that he really didn't have any conquests. Well,
right.
That just says he did.
Yeah, he had 2 here, right? He conquered Elam and Anshan.
My point is, but I was going back to like when you said about the book having a different focus. Well, that's because my focus, I'm looking for the wars. I'm looking for the stuff that they're not paying much attention to or think isn't really important in the big scheme of things. Well, to me, it is.
Yeah. It's the difference between reciting history as though it's just straight fact and having an analysis of history, right?
I agree.
Like, I personally am not a person who's very good at just reciting things without trying to analyze it.
Well, I think it's important because sometimes you get past ideas that are not worth believing as they're past.
Yeah.
Not that, given to you. You think, well, what?
Well, and I think we've kind of touched on this already a couple times during our chat today, is that sometimes when you just recite history, your biases come out. Like your pro-state bias will be in the words you use. And then people who read that, if they don't question it themselves, they come out with a pro-state bias.
Exactly. See, now you know exactly why I wanted to do this series. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because of that's also what I'm not putting. This goes back to like Graham Hancock says archaeologists are wrong to him or misunderstand or whatever, and that's not exactly how I see it. I see that, like I told you, most of the stuff that I have is from archaeologists, historians, or whatever, doing, in a sense, research work, and then I see the connections of these different ones together. Like I said, where I, in a sense, or like you, see issue is sometimes a terminology they say, then I or how they think or how they represent some, an idea.
Yep.
Now, once again, I don't think all of them, because like I said, there's definitely ones that do. So, but they put it in a way that I don't agree with, because it sounds like they're saying that this is a good thing.
Right.
Or like I feel like a lot of times, in my opinion, that they talk a lot about how important their archaeology, which it is, but then they'll talk and say that they deserve, in a sense, like more than me, right? Or some people, deserve to talk on, say, the facts. I don't disagree with that, but then they'll jump to the mythology, which is not about the facts, which is not even about the archaeology, in the sense, what do they call that? An academic bias. It's not their field of expertise.
Right. It's like an interpretation of the facts based on their perspective.
Because, in a sense, but they feel that because they have this other stuff that they're in a sense, which I try to help them understand, is speculations. There's speculations about stuff is somehow more accurate. And depending on what it is, if it's related to the thing, it may be, but they feel like sometimes that too many of there's other ones that don't. They feel like there are others that, to me, just archaeologists go the other way, where, like I said, they hedge every single bet, no matter if things
they don't want to. Yeah.
Obviously, they still wasn't. Well, what's been called a shaman? They won't even say what's been called. This is what has been called a shaman, and it probably relates to that. If that thinking is correct, to shamanism. Well, duh.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, is in a sense. But I grasp. There's nothing wrong with hedging your bets, like I said.
Yeah.
But I'm saying you'll hear it on both sides, and you'll have other ones where they'll say things like, they make this comment that all the different myths, right? Which, of course, this is not their expertise. They're not, in a sense, comparative religion studies professionals. Right. Sometimes they may be, but I'm just saying generally an archaeologist, that's not really their field. So they're talking in these comparative religion studies issues.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying, which I've heard this sometimes said about Graham Hancock, that you can have, in a sense, an evolution of the two things under two similar pressures, like in biology, and end up with, like, say, because they try to say like a shark or a dolphin, or in a sense, they're actually not related directly as people would think or something, because it look
right.
But they've got similar forms from, convergent evolution, or whatever you want to call it. But see, that is a speculation.
Right.
That all the myths in the world are only limited to that, which is what I try to understand is a global claim. You know how many things you have to disprove a global claim? One. So if one myth in the world is not because of that, then that global claim is at least somewhat inaccurate. Now, I don't think that all myths are related to every single thing in every single way, but I think a lot of it is, and certainly the bird beliefs in the Pacific Northwest and in America, and I think even Canada, but and then that of, in a sense, Far East Russia and Siberia and some of the China, the fact that they're similar is because of not they both saw birds and coercion evolution just invented bird beliefs, but that they came over with the Ghanaian language and brought bird beliefs. Boom, done.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying the DNA comes over, and so does the language, and guess what? Shocker, the religion.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying. So I feel like, and there's a document from folklore. I don't know, something, I can't remember the name, but it's a journal that deals with that, and they say there is a connection to Asia. It's undeniable.
Right.
So to me, which the DNA says that too, it's undeniable comes from Asia. But I'm just saying, and they say that it's undeniable that these are, in a sense, ancient beliefs that were brought over from Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'm not like Graham Hancock nonsense that somehow they were taught these full things. No, like I said, that's why I think it's so important to grasp the Ghanaian language, which we know is the same and yet has such far-reaching opinions and cultural beliefs.
Right.
I think that helps, at least to me, helps me grasp, like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're all kind of related, but they're definitely different. But yet you can't say they don't have some things. Like I said, the creator belief, that, which is, in a sense, a great spirit or high deity, in a sense, depending on how they interpret it.
Right.
But that was my thinking in general, is that goes back to, it starts off in a sense like an animal, like a bird, right? And then it becomes a great bird, in a sense. And, a storm bird and stuff. And that storm bird goes on top of mountains, and then later gods are on top of mountains. I'm just saying it's a similar type of thinking. It's not. So in that sense, the coercient evolution is the mythology,
right,
patterns and the culture or whatever, and not just that if I want to build something, I'm going to build a pyramid, in a sense. Like, I feel like, you get what I'm saying?
I think so.
Because what I'm saying is, I feel like it is wrong to think that, like Graham Hancock, that someone gave all this knowledge, like,
right,
package, and then people, here's follow the IKEA thing for building a pyramid. A goes here, B goes. No, that's absolute nonsense. But the thinking is what I'm talking about. Is just like I said. But that's why I think it's important to understand the Ghanaian thinking doesn't stay the same. It immediately starts splitting into all things, which is evident too, even in Christianity. Look at all the denominations, different sects.
Yeah.
And that's why I laugh when people, say stuff like, the Bible's where I get my objective morality. I go, so everyone that believes the Bible all have the exact same morality, since it's so objective.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
No, pick a denomination even. Any of them. Let's say, Baptists. All Baptists. Well, no, there's Southern Baptists and Northern Baptists, and Then there's Reformist Baptists. You're like, oh my God, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's more accurate. It's not that, you get what I'm saying? It's not that to think that somehow some pure thing was put everywhere and everybody this is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's clear that like it I guess we've said it multiple times. It has a root that can evolve depending on,
Right, and that's still my speculation, and I'm open to being proven wrong. I'm just showing why this is why I think this, and I certainly feel that to say that it was what he says, it's just inaccurate and doesn't match any evidence. I mean, it doesn't match some. It doesn't match to me any of it. To me, his world mythologies for the floods doesn't match.
No,
it doesn't match. The time frame. Even if you agree, which I don't 100% agree, the Younger Dryas was as dramatic or whatever, or had a starburst. Even if it did, I get it. Okay. And that still doesn't prove ancient culture that's not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you say DNA, and okay, but here's the thing, that DNA wasn't there. And here's another thing. When our DNA, because I have another breakdown of it, when it went from in a sense, Siberian cultures it went at a certain time that was probably, because if it went in at 26 or something, or 24, or whatever, because it looks like I might, or even 28, it might. Here's the thing, it might, because he talks about white skin is what I'm talking about. If it went in at that time, it didn't yet evolve to me to where it was white skin.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not saying that it wasn't like her, but even then, that no one says that that America is inhabited by people that are black.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not even not even a point.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
all right, I'll keep going. Inscriptions mention temples built by Gudea in Ur, Nippur, Adab, Uruk, and Bad Tibera. This indicates the growing influence of Gudea in Sumer. His predecessor, Ur-Baba, had already made his daughter Ananpada high priestess of Nana at Ur, which indicates a great deal of political power as well. Materials for his buildings and statues were brought from all parts of Western Asia. Cedar wood from the Amanus Mountains, quarried stones from Lebanon, copper from northern Arabia, gold and precious stones from the desert between Canaan and Egypt, diorite from Megan, and timber from Dilmun.
So all these products are coming in, and it is certainly possible with both ideas being spread outward and ideas coming back from, inward in a sense. It just, I'm just saying that people, that's all I was always saying is that people need to grasp too, is that I keep saying, well, over and over and over and over again, is that a lot of these systems were not closed. The ideas were not somehow, shielded, out in the middle of nowhere. No one was around, and totally. Well, it's not because even when I say indigenous beliefs, indigenous beliefs in relation to their environment and sometimes, multiple sources.
Right. Yeah. Interacting with other people in various ways.
Right.
And yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's like a fluid type of mixture of different, this is your main culture or whatever, but you've got people coming and going and giving, they're speaking and writing and talking amongst themselves and all this stuff.
Yeah. So, and you see this too, because as Egypt evolves in a sense in time from 5,100 down, it gets some deities come and some deities go. So, I mean, in a sense, it is changing. So this opinion that, Egypt never changed or something is not accurate.
Right, that it was just this one thing forever.
Right. It's like, so when they say, oh, well, Egyptians believe this one deity, you got to look, well, what time did they believe in that deity?
Right.
Because So and so I can't remember now what the term is, but there's some term that relates to deities believed in Egypt of foreign origin, where they themselves call these foreign deities.
Oh, okay.
Believe
Interesting.
them. I can't remember now, but there's a, and I think it might be the New Kingdom or down. It's not since the old, but the old did some of that too. But the new is definitely, I think, is where that happens. But it doesn't matter. I'm just saying that to grasp that it's not like this never ending. Because so as I say this, see people go, "Oh, the religion lasted 3,000 years or something," right?
Okay.
Well, but it didn't stay 100% the same for 3,000 years.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, some of the religion, yes, but a little bit of things became, even with this, even if you say that none of the deities changed, which is not accurate, sometimes their emphasis did.
Mm-hmm.
Like this one is more popular, and later this one's more popular. See what I'm saying?
Yep.
Or then, like, first it starts with this one, say, female deity. And then later they relate it to 3 other deities that are female. And then later it becomes, say someone's wife of a male.
Oh, okay.
Deity. So it's you get what I'm saying? My point is that it's just, like you said, fluid. I'm just trying to people to grasp that. So from outside ideas or whatever, or change even in the system itself, it changed.
Yeah.
But really, I feel both outside influences and internal influences.
I mean, that makes sense. Like when you like you say, like, because people are going to have their own ideas and they're going to like something that it occurs to me, like when you place like mystical ideas onto like natural events. Well, then a natural event occurs and you're like, okay, but we have to focus on this god or goddess now because this has been going on. And this,
I there's all kinds of different reasons that Egypt or anywhere else got different ideas. But yes, I agree that I know that there's a prophecy. I think it's in Peru or whatever, but I think the Peruvians. But I think it's about the king felt that he was his reign would end or whatever at a certain time because of solar things or something like that, or it was something like that. And anyways, but my point is, so when things, like you said about time, so when things changed, then he's like, well, what do I do now? But it had to do with because of his beliefs anyways.
Right.
So
yeah, it all came out of his own belief system, and maybe things wouldn't have changed if he hadn't.
Well, and people only think that the people in the past fall for stuff. That's inaccurate. People fall for things all the time. Yeah. I've fallen for things, and I'm a reasonable thinker. So I mean, it's it definitely is not something new.
No, that's right. Right. Well, let's keep going, I guess. 26 statues of Gudea have been found so far during excavations of Tello in ancient Girsu, with most of the rest coming from the art trade. The early statues were made of limestone, steatite, and alabaster. Later, when wide-ranging trade connections had been established, the more costly exotic diorite was used. Diorite had already been used by old Sumerian rulers, as in the statue of Entemena. These statues include inscriptions during trade, rulership, and describing trade, rulership, and religion. And these were one of the many types of new Neo-Sumerian art forms. Gudea and religion. The pleas to the gods under Gudea and his successors appeared more creative and honest, whereas the Akkadian kings followed a rote pattern of cursing the progeny and tearing out the foundations of those that vandalize a stele. The Lagash kings send various messages. Times were violent after the Akkadian Empire lost power over southern Mesopotamia, and the god receiving the most attention from Gudea was Ningirsu, a god of battle. Though there was only one mention of martial success on the part of Gudea, the many trappings of war which he builds for Ningirsu indicate a violent era. Isn't this the guy with no conquest?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's why, like I said, because that other person seems to be, with a greater desire to to show statism,
Yeah.
is not a bad thing than me. Or if there's a war, I want to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. Southern Mesopotamian cities define themselves through their worship, and the decision on Gudea's part for Lagash to fashion regalia of war for its gods is indicative of the temperament of the times. Though obviously the foundation and progeny curse was not the only religious invocation by the political powers during the Akkadian Empire, it demonstrates a certain standardization and with it stagnation of the position of the gods that likely did not sit well with the people of Lagash. Ningirsu, or the one, with whom the Gudean dynasty of Lagash begins, leaves little in the way of inscriptions, and though some mentions of various gods seems to indicate a more central role, it is not until Gudea that there can be a side-by-side comparison with the old curse of Sargon of Akkad. The inscription on a statue of Gudea as architect of the house of Ningirsu warns the reader of doom if the words are altered, but there is a startling difference between the warnings of Sargon or his line and the warnings of Gudea. The one is length. Gudea's curse lasts nearly a quarter of the inscription's considerable length, and another is creativity. The gods will not merely reduce the offender's progeny to ash and destroy his foundations. No, they will, quote, let him sit down in the dust instead of on the seat they set up for him, quote, end quote. He will be slaughtered like a bull, seized like an aurochs by his fierce horn. But these differences, though demonstrating a Lagashite respect of religious figures simply in the amount of time and energy they required, are not as telling as the language Gudea uses to justify any punishment. Whereas Sargon or Naram Sin simply demand punishment to any who change their words based on their power, Gudea defends his words through tradition. Quote, since the earliest days, since the seed sprouted forth, no one was ever supposed to alter the utterance of a ruler of Lagash, who, after building the Eninu for my lord Ningirsu, made things function as they should, end quote. Changing the words of Naram Sin, the living god, is treason, because he is the king. But changing the words of Gudea, simple governor of Lagash, is unjust, because he made things work right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. He made it. Yeah, okay.
Right. Praise the leader.
Praise the leader, yeah. Gudea and reforms. The social reforms instituted during Gudea's rulership, which included the cancellation of debts and allowing women to own family land, may have been honest reform or a return to old Lagashite custom. His era was especially one of artistic development, but it was Ningirsu who developed the majority of Gudea's attention. Ningirsu, the war god for whom Gudea built maces, spears, and axes, all appropriately named for the destructive power of Ningirsu, enormous in guilt. However, the devotion for Ningirsu was especially inspired by the fact that this was Gudea's personal god, and that Ningirsu was since ancient times the main god of the Lagashite region, together with his spouse, Baal or Baba. In matters of trade, Lagash under Gudea had extensive commercial communications with distant realms. According to his own records, Gudea brought cedars from the Amanus and Lebanon mountains in Syria, diorite from eastern Arabia, copper and gold from central and southern Arabia, and from Sinai, while his armies were engaged in battles in Elam on the east. The Gudea Cylinders, written after the life of Gudea, paints an attractive picture of southern Mesopotamia during the Lagash supremacy in it. The Elamites came to him from Elam loaded with wood on their shoulders in order to build Ningirsu's house. The general tone being one of brotherly love in an area that has known only regional conflict. Gudea built more than the house of Ningirsu. He restored tradition to Lagash. His use of the title Ensi, when he obviously held enough political influence, both in Lagash and in the region, to justify Lugal, demonstrates the same political tact as his emphasis on the power of the divine. Ningirsu II, the next ruler of Lagash, took as his title Ningirsu, ruler of Lagash, son of Gudea, ruler of Lagash, who had built Ningirsu's house. Gudea and international relations. Indus-Mesopotamian relations. In an inscription, Gudea referred to the Melhuhans, who came to Sumer to sell gold dust, carnelian, etc. In another inscription, he mentioned his victory over the territories of Magan, Meluha, Elam, and Amuru. In the Gudea cylinders, Gudea mentions that I will spread the world respect for my temple. Under my name, the whole universe will gather in it. And Magan and Meluha will come down from their mountains to attend. That's in cylinder A, comma 9, IX. In cylinder B, comma XIV, he mentions his procurement of blocks of lapis lazuli and bright carnelian from Meluha. The first known reference to Goa in India possibly appears as Gubi in the records of Gudea at the time. Sumerians had established trade contacts with India.
And there's some genetics that show people from even as far as the Himalayas coming into India and then also making it to the Sumerian or whatever Mesopotamian, area.
Okay.
But
So people from
and I think I heard before that they had probably workers migrate and then do gems or armbands or whatever they were doing.
Oh, okay. Huh. Later influence of Gudea. Gudea's appearance is recognizable today because he had numerous statues or idols depicting him with unprecedented lifelike realism placed in temples throughout Sumer. Gudea took advantage of artistic development because he evidently wanted posterity to know what he looked like, and in that he has succeeded, a feat available to him as royalty, but not to the common people who could not afford to have statues engraved of themselves. Gudea, obviously.
they're trying to get food in their mouth.
Yeah.
And they also didn't have probably the same beds either,
Yeah, that's right.
Or chairs or all kinds of stuff. I mean, or time to sit in the chairs or lay in the beds, since they had to work for a living and the rulers really didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. As royalty, he could have statues built for him, and the common people could not.
Yeah.
This seems relatively uncontroversial. It's a normal thing that happens when you have rulers like that.
Yeah. Dictators commonly have effigies of themselves. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Still an issue.
Still happens every single day. Gudea, following Sargon, was one of the first rulers to claim divinity for himself or to have it claimed for him after his death. I thought earlier in this we read that it said that he did not claim it, but that it was granted to him after he died.
Yeah. So maybe there's some speculation about when that happened or if it was before. But like I told you, in general, a lot, it's not an uncommon thing.
Right, yeah.
Especially for rulers to either be deified before or after or whatever. Or you even being seen as a semi-deity, in a sense.
They certainly always seem to say that they speak for the gods, right?
Yes,
or their particular god.
Well, and they have the power to decide that what religion is going to express that as.
Yeah.
So it says that, well, of course, God loves when I conquer things.
Yeah, that's right.
Or goddess or whatever.
I'm doing it in this god's name, so they love it. Yeah. Some of his exploits were later added to the Gilgamesh epic. Following Gudea, the influence of Lagash declined until it suffered a military defeat by Ur-Nammu, This third dynasty of Ur then became the reigning power in southern Mesopotamia. And that is all we have for Gudea. So now we're on to Utu-hegal. And we have a video still for that. Make sure it's at the 0. All right.
At the end of the day, the Guteans were outsiders, and most Sumerians, if later texts are to be believed, considered themselves to be superior to them. It was only a matter of time before a local NC from Uruk named Utu-hegal finally organized a force to end the Gutean presence in Sumer. Excerpts from an inscription attributed to Utu-hegal state the following. Enlil, the king of all the lands, commissioned Utu-hegal, the mighty man, deity, by the way, the king of Uruk.
Oh, Enlil is the...
Yeah, and if you look at the I-L, Il, and L, later, like in Canaanite religion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the last I-L part. Il.
Okay.
Anyways, just saying some people don't know, because sometimes when they say it, you're like, oh, he was a king? Well, no. No, what they're saying is the god Enlil, the king of the lands. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Got Utu-hegal, the mighty man, the king of Uruk, to do his bidding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. The king of the four quarters, to destroy the name of Gutium, the snake and the scorpion of the mountain, who carried off the kingship of Sumer to the foreign land. We're then told that Utu-hegal made preparations to attack the Guteans and prayed to the gods for their support and blessings. The text continues. In that very night, he went to Utu and made supplication to him. Utu, Enlil has given me Gutium. Be you my ally in this. At that place, Gutium gathered its forces and sent forth the troops against him. Utu-hegal, the mighty man, conquered them. Then Tirigan, the king of Gutium, fled all by himself back toward Gutium. In Dubrum, where he had taken refuge, he was treated kindly. But since the men of Dubrum knew that Utu-hegal was the king to whom Enlil had granted might, they did not set Tirigan free. The envoy of Utu-hegal took Tirigan and his family prisoner in Dubrum, placed stalks of wood upon his hands, and blindfolded him. He was then brought before Utu-hegal, threw himself at his feet, and he, Utu-hegal, set his foot upon his neck. He returned the kingship to Sumer.
Okay. So that is Utu-hegal.
Right.
We've got Utu-hegal, also written Utu-hegal, or another variation on that, and sometimes transcribed as Utu-hegal, and various other, and was one of the first native kings of Sumer after 200 years of Akkadian and Gutean rule, and was at the origin of the foundation of the third dynasty of Ur. By his son-in-law, Ur-Nammu, he was officially king of Uruk in his inscriptions and is therefore considered as the founder and only member of the fifth dynasty of Uruk, Uruk V. There are several theories regarding his background. The most common is that he was a governor of Uruk who revolted against the Gutean kings in 2050 BCE. He led the cities of Sumer against the last Gutean king, Tirigan. After a battle at an unknown location, Utu-hegal was victorious and forced Tirigan to flee back towards Gutium. Tirigan fled to the city of Dubrum, location unknown, where the people treated him kindly. However, once the people of Dubrum heard that Utu-hegal was marching towards the city, they took Tirigan and his family prisoner. He was brought before Utu-hegal and agreed to leave Sumer and retreat back to Gutium. After defeating the Guteans, Utu-hegal established himself as the king of Sumer. In the 7th year of the kingship, he tragically died by an accident when inspecting when inspecting a dam. leading some to suspect foul play, and was succeeded by his son-in-law, the governor of Ur-Nammu, as the king of Sumer. He was thus the only king of the 5th dynasty of Uruk. In fact, Sumerian people have always treated Utu-hegal's kingship and the Ur-3 dynasty together as a single continuous dynasty, with Utu-hegal as the founder. Utu-hegal has been praised as one of the greatest historical figures and heroes of Sumerian people. There was a victory stele was erected in Uruk by Utu-hegal, a copy of which was made during the dynasty of Isen. The stele described the victory of Utu-hegal over the Guteans, particularly their king, Tirigan. The beginnings of this inscription reads, Enlil, Gutium, the fanged snake of the mountain ranges, a people who acted violently against the gods, people who the kingship of Sumer to the mountains took away, who Sumer with wickedness filled, who from one with a wife, his wife took away from him, who from one with a child, his child took away from him, who wickedness and violence produced within the country. Enlil, the king of all the lands, to obliterate its name, Utu-hegal, the mighty man, the king of Uruk, the king of the 4 world quarters, the king whose utterances cannot be countermanded. Enlil, the king of all the lands, issued to him a command about this. To Inanna, his lady, he went and prayed to her, My lady, lioness of battle, who the foreign land batters, Enlil, the kingship of Sumer, to return to its own control, he commanded me, may you be my ally. An army of many foreigners bore down upon the land everywhere. Tirigran, the king of Gutium, opened its mouths, but no one came out against him. Both banks of the Tigris he had seized. To the south in the Sumer, the cultivated land he tied up. To the north, the roads he tied up. On the highways of the country he made tall grasses grow. By the envoys of Utu-hegal, Tirigan and his wife and children in Dabram were captured. And they placed fetters on his hands and put a cloth over his eyes. Utu-hegal, before Utu, made him lie at Utu's feet. And on his neck he set his foot. Gutium, the fanged snake of the mountain ranges, he made drink from the cracks in the earth. So that's from the victory stele of Utu-hegal. And that is the end of our script for today.
Yep. And so what would you think, so far with your analysis of this stuff that,
Well, I think we've repeated this before, but states are bad. People with power tend to send their soldiers to fight in their name or what have you,
right,
so they can get more power.
Right, because it's not like these people always say it incorrectly. It's not like the leaders themselves went out and always fought. Some did, but even if they did, they didn't win the battle themselves.
Yeah, that's right.
No one person has ever done that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like with this Utu-hegal, how because the Guteans had kind of been around for so long before he was around.
All right.
Then he defeats them, and suddenly he's the king, the great man of our place, right? He's the great king of Uruk, the
divine right of war, what you're
champion of the people, or what have you. When really he was just another king who just didn't like having these guys threaten him.
Right. And so I'm saying it's a divine right of war that in a sense might makes right, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. He won, so now he's a great man.
Yeah.
Somehow. Yeah.
We kicked the other people out. Well, he keeps oppressing his people, yeah. But it reminds me when people talked about about Donald Trump and said, well, Donald Trump wants to be a king or a dictator. Like, yeah, but at least we'll be under Donald Trump. It's like, oh.
So that's better somehow.
Yeah, we don't want it, but if it's that, well, then that's okay. No. But I think that in general, just like the general strike or any kind of concept like that, that our power is always, in a sense, in relation to class war.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know,
we're always there's always the ruling class that is like dominating, like, and pushing people to do certain things in their name, right?
In other words, think of it this way. Let's just say that he's this great leader he thinks. You know what a great leader would have done? It would have kicked him out and then let all the people be free.
Yeah.
That would have been closer to what I think that he sees himself as.
Right.
But or somehow is being expressed as, that I don't think that's an accurate portrayal. He was still glorified, but I think it's weird to me too, because like I told you before, imagine if someone, everybody, hates Donald Trump or whatever, or the majority do. But if that same behavior that he does, I mean, to a T practically, is done by an ancient person, oh, well, that's fine.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
If you don't like that, why exactly is the other thing wonderful or okay? Well, it was the best at the time. Like,
no, I'm not here for it.
No, the best at the time, the person who was not doing any war, that would have been the best.
Yeah.
Or the person that does war for the purpose of, actually freeing people.
Yeah, that's right. Or like if you're being attacked, then organizing your people to defend themselves so that they can maintain freedom, rather than, going out in conquest and taking over other places.
Right. Or certainly you can't say it's freedom if you would initially kick the other oppressors out and then still yourself as the oppressor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which I feel like a lot of times is said, and like, yeah, that's not really. But like you said about getting better, people's opinion, like it said in that thing, that less tyranny. Oh, okay, that's our hope. That's the hope of democracy. Less tyranny. That doesn't, the hope of statism.
And then if you're like, but there's still tyranny, then you get the liberals going, well, oh, so you hate progress then? You just hate, you want more tyranny. No.
Right.
I want all the tyranny gone, please.
Yeah. Well, and to me, I feel like I told you before, though, to me, I feel like so many things could be done even before a revolution to benefit us.
Yeah.
We could, here, if you want to have states, here's a clue. No more single leaders of any kind. Oh, I know that's a crazy idea, but the single leaders are an egotistical thing that's not a good idea.
Yeah, that's right.
And it creates almost like religions and worship of people. I mean, to me, that should be like one of the first things. And the second thing should be that people own themselves. Everybody has their own rights. I mean, you shouldn't be able to push shit on other people. I know this is crazy.
Yeah, go figure.
But I mean, that would be some progress. Do you start doing shit like that? That would be some real progress. Like, who do you want for president? No one. How's that?
Yeah.
Never again have a president. Never again have a chairman.
Yeah.
Never.
No.
To me, I mean, I'm just saying, because hierarchy is inherently bad. So if we can chip it the fuck away, that would be absolutely, to me, a good thing. Absolutely.
Yep.
You're
just putting one person at the top is just a bad idea, and it never works.
well, and just think, whether you're conservative or even if they're watching non-anarchist or a socialist, whether you're a conservative or a liberal, you feel, don't you understand it's the same in a sense thing? Shouldn't we all want these same things? So in other words, I'm talking about the one leader. What couldn't you still have all your values and not have one leader?
Yep.
I mean, it's just I don't see how you can justify the one leader, period.
Yeah. There shouldn't be presidents. There shouldn't be the one guy at the top.
I hate the entire fucking concept. Yeah. So if they think I'm a reformer, well, then what I want to reform is so much it won't look like the old thing. How's that?
Yeah, that's right.
But I'm just saying, to me, like you said, because I'm not, like I said, I don't spend my time attacking liberals, and I don't even actually exactly spend most of my time attacking conservatives either. I usually try to attack ideas, because to me, both of them really, think that they're so different, are all sort of the same idea.
Right.
One single person can fucking say anything.
You propose wealth tax, and they'll both reject it.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that area to me is just disgusting, and hero worship in general. I don't like it when leftists do it to anarchists, or socialists do it to, famous socialists. I mean, you can appreciate someone's ideas. You can do all that. You can even think they're great. But the way some of them think about it, it's not, to me personally, healthy.
No.
Or at least not in a sense if you want to produce classless, stateless society, which is communism, or if you want to me, even produce a fair society. Hero worship is not the way to do it.
One of the things that really gets me is like when I criticize Justin Trudeau or the Liberals in Canada, they've had power for 12 years.
Right.
No, that's not right. 7 years.
But would you say too that they probably, just like in America, I don't know, but doesn't the different provinces not all ruled in a sense the same way? Like in other words, like this the central state has its opinions, but then the provinces have these,
they have their
finite,
own government systems with one man at the top, and they have their own opinions. And and it's like, so I can be critical of Justin Trudeau, but I'll get the Liberals will they'll make their favorite thing to do online is make excuses for him, and but then I'll go and I'll criticize like Scott Moe, and he's the conservative leader in Saskatchewan,
right.
And those same Liberals will be like on board with very similar criticisms, but just not their guy, right?
Right.
So they're like on board with what I'm saying, but as soon as it's aimed at their guy, then they're like, "Oh no, here you can't say that. He's doing this and this and this." But
I don't like that part right there, that you can't say that. I've heard that before too.
Yeah.
This is what was one woman was saying, how can I be an anarchist when there's someone like Trump? This is a while ago, obviously, when he was still,
literally the only way to stop Trump is by anarchism. As long as you have literally the only way to stop a Trump from existing is by having anarchism.
But good point. But my point was, she was trying to say that if anything that would make the Democrat look, even if it's honest, not as good, shouldn't be said somehow.
Right.
And I was like, well, I do support some thinking that the Democrats have, but I hate to break the news to you. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an anarchist.
Yeah.
And so my goals actually do not really align with most things they say, but there's a few things that we say, gay rights, which I still feel my position will be stronger. Women's rights, my position will still be stronger. Race rights, my position would still be stronger.
Yep.
But
exactly.
But in a sense, you're not, being wholeheartedly toxic like the conservative Republicans are. But I don't agree. If how we get people to do stuff is by not telling the truth, and you think that's a good idea, but yet, like you said, my point is this. So they don't want to say the truth, even if it is, because I said Joe Biden is creepy. The dude rubbing up against people and shit, that shit's creepy. It shouldn't happen. Yeah. It's unacceptable. Letting this leader or whatever get away with that being acceptable is also even more not acceptable. Not just with them doing it, but you somehow covering it up or whatever. That's just unacceptable. And they said, well, he doesn't, molest his daughter and stuff. And I said, well, I don't know what he's done, but I'll agree with you. Trump obviously is worse. Because I critique Biden doesn't mean I'm pro-Trump.
Exactly.
I literally cannot stand Trump. I made a Facebook group, Atheists Against Trump. I can't stand the dude. Yeah. But that is not somehow sycophant worship, and I'm going to worship anybody who also doesn't like him.
Yeah. It's like I don't have to think in this team or that team, right? Like, I don't have to pick Justin Trudeau or Pierre Poilievre. They both fucking suck.
Yeah. Right. But I'm saying, but my point was that like you said about the truth. Yeah. But they didn't want me to say things.
Well, yeah.
Because that could lead to people not wanting to like them as president. And I'm like, look, I would even vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump because I see that's the only option.
Yeah.
But that still will never stop me from saying bad shit about Joe Biden if it's fucking true.
Yeah.
And the fact that that's my point. That I'm trying to say is they could be a Democrat and still be honest enough to say the shit that's bad.
Yep.
The fact that you just say, same with the Republicans, the fact that you can say, oh, Democrats like, to be groomers and then have all these people that have sex allegations and rape and
right.
Come on. Yeah, I mean, it's
that was actually in the 2020 election. That was one of the big things that like the Democratic supporters were saying was like, we will be able to criticize Joe Biden. We aren't like them. We don't worship our leader. We don't.
Not true. They told me to stop saying shit.
Exactly. And then you go out and you criticize them, and they're like, "Oh, you can't say that because it empowers the Republicans." Well, no, you fuck off. Like I can criticize them all I want. Like
well, fuck off because I personally think it's unhealthy for if you can't do it. If you can't,
that's right.
That's unhealthy.
Yeah.
100%. So, that fuck off about that. I mean,
yep.
No matter what side you're on, it's unhealthy to do that. Like I said, I think it's, but I try to be consistent. I don't say that's only about the Democrats. I say it about socialists and communists and anarchists, people I agree with. I'm like, yeah, well, still, I don't think we should be worshiping Marx. I don't think we should worship Pardon or any other anarchists or socialists or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like, what part of philosophy class did it say it's a healthy thinking endeavor to worship, power? I mean, what the hell?
This is literally the opposite of what I want to do.
But what's crazy, like you said too, is if someone will get even irritated. How could you get irritated? I want to talk critical thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Another thing too is weird is how can you support the Me Too movement and then be like crickets when it comes to anything Joe Biden's done? I mean, why not address it? Make him, if you think he's okay, then make him fucking address it. He mildly did, but then I don't see him being totally different. I mean, he still does the similar thing of touching people. You're in public, dude. You don't just get to fucking randomly touch fucking people, especially women and children and stuff, and then put your face up against them.
This is part of why, like, if you're going to have presidents, I think they shouldn't be over like a certain age group, because over a certain age, or maybe not, maybe that's wrong, but they have to be able to demonstrate that they can learn about and adapt to the current system of the way the society is running. So when Me Too comes out, Joe Biden or whoever you have in charge of your party has to be like, yes, we don't touch people without their consent. We don't rub against people. We don't smell people's hair.
That's just some fucking wrong shit. I was just
like, we just don't do that.
It's absolutely creepy, and it should not be accepted. And the fact that it does it to me is just because of abuse of power.
Yeah, that's right.
If anyone else, if you're walking and anyone else came behind you and did that shit, you would not be like, oh yeah, that's totally okay.
Yeah. It's the same thing. It is it's not the same thing, but it's similar to Justin Trudeau and the blackface thing. Like, honestly, if liberals were honest, that would have ended his career. That he would no longer be the leader of that party, and they would have a new leader of the party. Because
he certainly would have got a serious response than what he did.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's the same thing I was saying with Joe Biden. Even if they say, oh well, yeah, well, we acknowledge that he said you should have a lot more care about that. I mean, your care should not be the leader doesn't look bad, but things that are happening are not bad. That's
right.
Here's my fucking leader.
Yeah, I don't care about his reputation. I care about whether or not he's doing bad things.
Well, just think. Do you think that hiding it is going to be good or bad for the Me Too movement?
Right.
In general, if we like a leader, it's like people say with I'm trying to think of a singer. He wrote Thriller. I'm trying to think. Oh, Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
Oh, I wasn't thinking. Couldn't remember the name. But anyways, so Michael Jackson. I'm just saying that he supposedly did stay with children. That to me should be it.
Yeah.
I mean,
There
the
were
fact that people like, oh, he didn't, and like, we don't know. He paid a lot of money for people to not talk about what happened and involved kids. Like, that's enough. I don't need to hear no more.
children came forward, like victims came forward when like even if after they dropped the court case due to settlement out of court or what have you, kids came forward. They said that this happened to them. The end.
Well, that's a good point too. The court cases. So it's easier for me to think that something is not as serious against the person if the challenge is not taken to court. I'm not saying that means that it's wrong, but it's easier for me to see that it could be not right. But if a person is willing to take you to court and it goes all the way to the court to the point that you pay them all this millions of money, come on.
Yeah.
It's but what I'm saying is that's why I think that in general it's like the statism. But if you like them, we don't talk about it. And if they're like you said, if they do something that seems racist or anti-Semitic or
we sweep it under the rug,
bigoted in some other way, we just go, well, let's not talk about that.
Yeah, let's just move on because we don't want to hurt our party or our team, right?
That to me that's why right there I have a problem with that. That is not. Yeah. But like I said, how could people who want to be free thinkers not have a problem with that?
Yeah.
No matter what you believe, even if you want to keep believing the Democrats or the Republicans or whatever are right, how are any of you sycophantly worshiping these people?
Yeah. Yeah. Even if you do still believe in your team, like you should be, at the very least, you should be like holding your leader of your team to account.
That's what I'm saying.
You can improve your team.
No matter what they're doing, if you yourself, even if you think your values are good, isn't one of your values that people tell the truth? I mean, this isn't like a simple one. You should have a value. If you don't, man.
Yeah, that's right.
That's even a bigger problem.
Well, and I think though that you're right though that people don't value truth the same way that they think they do. They often they value truth insofar as it serves their own existing mentality, right? They don't want to experience like cognitive dissonance. They don't want to experience that psychological pain of the truth coming up against their belief systems and their ideas.
Right. But if they had my, in a sense, value I have of having a good belief etiquette, then it would be part of their belief system structure that you always try to have good beliefs that are reasoned, that you try to assess them again and make sure that all the beliefs you're currently holding still have the same believableness, or if ones need to change, to honestly be willing to change them. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we did this, it would be a lot better. That's why I talk about it so often. Yeah. And just like to me, getting into debating people or talking about people about facts, to me, just like I say, you should start at the thing, ontology. What are they talking about? Epistemology. How do they know that? And then axiology. After they've given you their statement, their stuff, their proposed evidence, you value judge it. Yeah. Is it accurate? Is it close to the truth? Is it reasoned? Is it, substantially supported? This is, to me, that's why I think it's good to do things in like a pattern like that. Same with thinking, because then you can increase accuracy.
Yep. That makes sense.
I know. Crazy philosophy stuff. It sounds too simple.
Yeah, shit.
All right. Well, I appreciated you going through this and stuff, and I'm liking it, even if other people aren't.
Yeah, it's fun to come on and chat for a few hours and whatever, and
yeah.
No,
I think it's good, and I think it really could help, and certainly it gets my ideas, I think, a lot more filtered through how I perceive things, so people can grasp. Because, like I said before, the point is not for me to make you want to somehow believe every word I say. It's to grasp a better way of thinking. I feel that my way of analyzing things could be helpful to people to improve their critical thinking, in general. And then also, like I said, willingness to change.
Yep.
This not changing, especially beliefs, is ridiculous.
Yep.
So anyways, I appreciate it. And go ahead and tell us about you and what you're doing.
Well, I'm actually a little bit behind on my products. I've been dealing with some family shit lately, but we're coming through the other side. So we are. You can find my stuff at the Mind of a Skeptical Leftist on YouTube. I've got lots of great episodes and interviews as a back catalog, and if you don't want to wait for the next one, it should be soon though. It should be soon.
And also talk about your read reviews, because I think that's also something, especially like I was saying, that to hearing you both, because in a sense you read that book, but you've also done a lot of stuff with me. Don't you think that that's in a sense going to give you this different perspective?
Yeah, that's right. It gives me a different outlook on what I'm reading, right? So then I can kind of apply my own analysis from what I've learned here and through other sources, and then apply that to the book I'm reading. And Justin, he's got a different perspective than I do on many things. And so read reviews, we start recording. Oh, excuse me. Again on January 3rd. So we're going to start that up again for the new year. We have a whole plan for the whole year of all the books that we're going to cover.
Cool.
Yeah, Justin I think he does a great analysis of the books that he's read. He has a history background. So he's got that going for him for that kind of way of looking at things. And yeah, so that starts again on January 3rd. That'll be really fun. And it's also on the YouTube channel and in the same podcast feed as the regular Mind of a Skeptical Leftist interviews. Other than that, I guess I'm trying to get less active on Twitter, but that's at Skeptical Lefty. And I'm trying to get more active on Mastodon, which is at Skeptical Leftist at collectiva.social.
You got to show me which thing to choose. I was going to go there and it's like, oh, you have to choose a mainframe or something. I'm like, what the heck?
I'll send you an invite to
do I do? Because I was thinking, what do I do? The one for Greenpeace or whatever it is, or like, I mean, I'm thinking, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here at all.
Yeah, like at this point, like there's so many and there's so much choice, and you can follow anybody from any server, so it almost doesn't matter which server you're on. But in another sense, it does, because you can click and just everybody who's on your server can appear in your feed if you want.
Well, can you send me the stuff of which server and stuff to do? Because I have absolutely no clue.
I will definitely send you.
I was like, I'm not educated enough on this to do this shit.
Yeah, I didn't think I was either. Like until I got an invite to a specific server, and then I found it much easier. So
right on. All right. Well, I appreciate you being on and the content you make, and thank you for joining me.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, antitheism, antireligionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist, with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudohistory, pseudomorality, things that are found in religion.